Two, one. All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter where you're watching us from around the globe, I got to thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. That's right. It's time to lace them up. And this is where I put sexy in sports talk. There you go, Smarty. How about that?
Love that, man. Love it. Love it.
So I'm honored to be in your living rooms, whether you're watching on your TV with Roku or Amazon Fire. Also very grateful if you're just cruising down the road listening to a podcast. Turn that volume up and let us put that flavor in your ear. Here we are. Don't forget to send your comments. Don't forget to send questions, your emoji reactions, and to share this conversation with this IU legend, Mr. Keith Smart. Matter of fact, I've got someone here real quick, Keith, as we're starting this interview. Look at here.
Ah, look at there. Look at
The,
there.
the wife has to come in and say hello.
You look great.
She's saying you look great.
COVID beard going, you know. Yeah,
Special
appreciate it. How are you?
She's good. She couldn't hear you there, but she's heading off to head to the salon. But special cameo appearance by my lovely wife, Kim. So Valentine's is still in the air over here.
That's great. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you, especially in the Hoosier Heart, where it's like 10 degrees below zero and a lot of snow, need no introduction of this gentleman. And I'm honored and thrilled to say that this guy is truly one of my best friends in the coaching industry. And I can't thank him enough for his kindness and his mentoring and just your friendship. Standing individual, beautiful wife, and lovely kids. So we share that in common, my man.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Appreciate that our relationship and friendship that have grown over the years, you know, and all of our stories kind of parallel with each other, you know, in our coaching treks around the world and things like that. And so, and having a fun love for basketball, but more importantly, we both have a fun love. I'm sure all your listeners have heard your relationship building, and so I'm honored to to find a chance to be on this world famous show.
Well, it's we're lucky to have you, and it's guests like yourself who so selflessly give of your time for our show and for our viewers. It's just truly a blessing to have you, my friend.
I appreciate that, man. I'm looking forward to as we get into conversation.
Let's do it. Well, let's dive right in. Of course, you've had a great career in basketball. You big time at Garden City. You go to Indiana University. You win, and most known for shot. I mean, everybody talks about this shot, but let's pull the curtain back and let's let people get to know who Jonathan Keith Smart is.
Well, hey, you say Jonathan, only a few people call me by that name, Jonathan, my wife and my mom when they're mad at me.
There you go. Well, see, we both go by our names, so
right.
there you go. So Coach, let's talk about that. I mean, you come from Louisiana, and I can remember when my wife was trying to learn how to cook gumbo. You were you were teaching us how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I never thought that I would have an opportunity to play basketball. I didn't grow up playing basketball from a standpoint of the AAU programs, things like that when we were coming up, but never had that thought down the road that, okay, let's go to school to play basketball, go to college to play basketball, and even go farther. The whole thing with me growing up in Louisiana was, hey, you go to school, you finish high school, you go to get a job, because there was no one that I saw in my family that had gone to college. So I didn't see that picture of that to what was next. And I always played basketball, played my freshman year. I started playing basketball in the 6th grade. And I played there, and then I went on to middle school and started playing basketball in the middle school. And then the coach at the middle school saw me playing and said, you should transfer to this school, McKinley High School. And I transferred to McKinley High School, not thinking of me playing basketball. I was a small kid, very small kid, and I started playing. And then I got to McKinley Senior High School and played on a basketball team, played on the JV basketball team. But then when I got to the varsity team, I got cut from the team my junior year, and got cut from that. And they went on that year to win the state championship. And I said, if I ever make a team again, I'll never quit, because I missed out on the state championship, you know. And my senior year came back, played well in the summer program, and went off to my senior year, third game of the season. I broke my wrist. And that was the end of my basketball career. The season was over. And after that, I started, and it'll come back later on in the conversation, but I started working part-time at McDonald's and doing my time in high school. And graduated from high school, got a motorcycle for graduation, fell off the motorcycle and broke my wrist again.
Oh.
One opportunity, my high school coach knew William Penn College, and he called him and said, hey, here's an opportunity, got a young man here. How about him coming there? So an opportunity to go to William Penn to play basketball, and I'm playing pickup. I break my wrist a third time.
Oh my goodness.
So that was it after that, you know. Then I started working at McDonald's full time, but still playing basketball in my off time once I got healed up and everything. And I'm playing this place called a Sports Academy. And a guy named Lester Roberts, who ran this program, he's from New York City, ran the program. And a guy named Leroy Hinton came up to me on the floor. And these things are all coming back freshly.
Wow.
Floor and said, hey, Mr. Roberts wants to see you. Now, when you got called into Mr. Roberts' office, it was something that had been done that maybe you had gotten into trouble somewhere. And so I go into his office, and he looks at me. I had a white T-shirt on, and he looks at me. He said, asked me how I was doing. I said, fine. And I'm nervous in his office, and he said, don't you see what's on your T-shirt? And I'm looking on my T-shirt. And I'm like, well, what's on my T-shirt? It's dirty, but I don't see anything. It's a plain white T-shirt. He said, you have it on that shirt. Don't you see the words can't miss? And I go, can't miss? What do you mean? He said, you can't miss. He said, and that next question was, how would you like to go to college with an opportunity to play basketball also? And at that moment, I just said, yes. I had no idea where I was going, how I was going to get there, how I was going to pay for it. I just said yes at that moment. And at that time, he started contacting different schools, and he had coached at Garden City Community College. And that's how I got to Garden City Community College, but not as a basketball player when I first started. So I simply went to Garden City as a student. My best friend was going to school there already. I simply just went there as a student. The end of that semester, they had an open tryout. And I got a chance to play in that open tryout and had 40 points in that tryout.
Wow.
I got offered a scholarship the next year and started playing, and that's how my career started. And I take it back to the as we moved through the championship, I never forget it, one of the announcers made a statement. We have a lot of McDonald's All-Americans on this floor, but we have one guy that worked at a McDonald's.
Hey, you took McDonald's All-American to another level.
Yeah, I was a true McDonald's All-American.
Oh, I love it. That Jayhawk conference is great basketball out there.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of guys that played in that league obviously went on to Division I schools, big time Division I schools, and it eventually went on to play in the professional ranks. And I was able to be the most valuable player in the Jayhawk conference. Played well out there, and eventually caught the eye of many Division I schools, and Indiana was one of those schools.
Right, and we're going to get into that, but just backtracking about that story, and I'm like, okay, gets cut from the high school team, just like another famous 23 that we all know. So, but wow, I didn't realize that you had broke your wrist multiple times, and coming back from that, and then there's the lessons in, just perseverance right there of knowing what you wanted to do and, going to set your sights on something and have laser-like focus to attain that goal.
Yeah, well, basketball for a lot of us, and as you know, it becomes a little safe haven.
Oh, it's our sanctuary. Yeah.
It was a way that I was able to get away. It was always near a basketball court by my house, the home that I lived in. So I would just get away and go play. Mom would always say, if you come in the house, you're staying in the house. If you go out, you stay out. And so I would get out and go to the basketball court and play over there. And of course, we had to be home before. They don't have it like now, but before the lights come on, you got to be home. and go over there and play. After school, I would go play and just had a love for the game. But I always thought that you have those 1-on-0 moments to where you are thinking about a shot, a move. You know, even now as a coach, I would sometimes have players on the court by themselves and just think about the game. Just think about
That
situations.
visualization. That's right.
Visualization. And I think a lot of things that I did when I was out there playing by myself, I was creating shots. I was creating the move, you know, dreaming about this particular shot, dreaming about making a shot one day to win a championship. You know, all those little things like that happen out there on the basketball court.
And see, I love that because I can remember, of course, I grew up in the state of Indiana where you became legend. And for me, it was always on a little Nerf hoop on
Mm-hmm.
the top of the door, playing in the hallway, and my mom constantly screaming, "This is not a gymnasium." And I'm doing the same thing, 3, 2, 1, and I'm
Yeah.
dunking and I'm emulating Dr. J, and I'm, so I
Yeah.
mean, it all starts somewhere. And I love that you share that story.
Mhm.
You had great success in the Jayhawk conference. Junior college basketball, I mean, is good basketball. It doesn't matter what level you're on. And if you've got talent, you're going to be seen. So I love that, again, you had a dream, aspirations, you wanted to play, you took advantage of the opportunity. And now let's start with Coach Bobby Knight, iconic coach.
Mhm.
When was your first interaction during the recruiting process with
Mhm.
Coach Bob Knight?
Well, being out in Western Kansas and enjoying my time out there, met so many great people, and even people that I am still in contact with right now. You know, there's a
Coach Ken Davidson.
Coach Ken Davison. You know, he's like a father figure to me.
Oh, great
Uh,
guy.
Another family out there, the Hileys. Don and Barb Hiley. We had these host families, and every Sunday the family would call for us to come over to have dinner. I still joke with them about, hey, I'll call them on a Sunday and say, hey, do you have that chicken, the corn and rice? You move. Well, I still talk to them, so when I started playing and started playing well, was getting recruited by KU, Kansas.
Yeah.
And, Larry Brown was coaching out there at that time. And then eventually some other schools started to take a look at me. We played against a team called Barton County Community College.
Yeah.
And they had 2 players on that team that had already committed to going to Indiana. A guy named Todd Jadlow and another guy named Andre Harris. And we played that team that night, unbeknown to me that Indiana was there. It was Joby Wright was there. And I ended up having a phenomenal game, had a really good game, but had no idea that Indiana was there. And so after that, I started receiving some letters from Indiana. Now, I said, there's no way that I would go to Indiana because IU play LSU. And I had saw Coach, obviously, how, he was on the floor and everything. I said, oh, man, that's I go to Indiana and play that coach, But they started recruiting me. And I tell you, I would get a letter. Every time I got a letter from Indiana, I would toss it in the trash can. I wouldn't even open it. I just, because Indiana
No interest.
I didn't know anything about it. So It was this love affair for IU. Much like LSU, growing up in Louisiana, LSU was the school you want to go to, but I wasn't recruited by them.
Coach Dale Brown. Yeah.
Dale Brown, I wasn't recruited by them. And so LSU going from recruiting a young man like me who didn't play high school basketball, no one knew about it. They weren't going to take a chance on someone like me, especially being a smaller kid before I went off to college. But as I played through that season, I started getting more and more letters from Indiana. And all of a sudden, we had played a game against Hutchinson Community College, which is where the national championship was being played.
That's right, Hutch, baby.
Hutch, you want to get to Hutch.
Yeah.
And we were playing against that team. Now, this is my first introduction to Coach Bob Knight. So that game we're playing, it's a big rival game for us, and we're all ready. But all the players decided we want to get these fancy haircuts. We want to get these things for the game tonight. So we go out and get to our little, campus barber, and he cuts different things in our hair. You know, I had parting lines on the side. Of course, hair's gone. We had parting lines on the side. I had a little arrow in the back that pointed to my number, which was number 12 in the back, all cut in. You
Yeah.
know, there was a little strip mall that was near the campus that would sell these gold on a rope,
Oh, yeah.
fake gold on the rope, I bought some of that stuff, man, and I had the rope at that time. Mr. T, the A-team was
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So I had my little Mr. T starters kit on, So we come over to the arena, and as I come into the locker room, I can see my coach. At that time, the head coach was Jim Carey. He was the guy, Jim Carey. So he's standing and he's talking to someone, but he's behind the door in a seat that he's sitting in, and I had no idea who he was talking to. So I come in, didn't never ever look back over my shoulder to see who he was talking to. I started putting things in my locker and started getting dressed. And all of a sudden he said, "Hey, Keith, say hi to Coach over there." And so I just turned around and looked over, and I saw Coach, and he just said to my coach, Jim Carey, "Is that the way you let your players dress?" I looked at him like, oh my goodness, Then he saw the gold chains and just looked at me. And that was about the end of the conversation. Went out, played, had a good game there. And when Coach Knight showed up at Garden City Community College, a little small gym, every coach started coming out there. And so there were so many Division I coaches coming to watch myself play. Another guy named TJ Ingram from Chicago, watch him play. And then after that, it came down to Indiana invited me for a visit. So I hadn't had a conversation with Coach Knight. We didn't talk that time that I saw him there, but only I remember those words. Is that how you let your players? Which became a signal because there was a special way of how Indiana basketball player is supposed to carry himself, look.
That's right.
And so that profile did not fit how I was looking,
Yeah, yeah. Come on, it's the mid '80s. It's Kid and Play, the high top Philly.
So after that period, I got recruited and got the invite to come visit several schools. You got 5 visits to go to, and my 5 at that time, Indiana was going to be one of, Kansas the other. North Carolina State was a school that I always wanted to go to. When I first saw that team play, I wanted to go to that school. But then they had
Jimmy V.
Yeah, they had that tartan surface.
Oh yeah.
And I had played on that before. And when I heard that they had that type of floor, I didn't want to play on that floor. And so I didn't visit them. And then Arkansas, and then Georgetown was another school at that. And so those are my schools. But I visited Kansas, KU, and I never forget going up to visit KU, talking with Larry Brown. I said, because rumors had him that he was going to be leaving to go to the NBA. And I said, "Coach, are you going to be here?" He said, "Well, I'm not saying I won't, but I'm," and so he wouldn't give me a definitive answer. And so he had
Which was your answer? Yeah.
Yeah, he had a wall on that he had called the Wall of Fame. And so he had a lot of people sign that wall. So he wanted me to sign it. So he signed it and said, "Will you come to Kansas? Will you come to KU?" And I wrote my name on this board on the wall. And I also put a question mark, and went from there. And then my next visit was Arkansas. And Nolan Richardson was the coach at that time.
That's right.
Got the second year in the job there, and he thought that I could fit his team. And but he just said, I said, I have one more visit that I'm going to go to. I won't go to the but I have one more visit. And Arkansas wanted me to come on the weekend so I can see the game on the weekend, to see that pageantry of what the arena.
Yeah, 40 minutes of hell, baby.
Exactly, but I had already scheduled that I was going to see them on a Thursday. I think it was a Tuesday, be there for my 2 days, and then fly over to Indiana to the weekend game there. And then when I told him that, he said, "Okay, you want to go to Indiana? You can't play in the Big Ten. You'll never survive in the Big Ten." And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you want me to come here to Arkansas? You don't think I can play in the Big Ten, but I can play here? So I knew Arkansas wasn't going to be a place for me to play. And then I took my visit to Indiana. And once I was there, they had a game. And I never forget walking onto the Assembly Hall floor with Coach Knight. Finally, him talking to me. "Nicest guy in the world." I said, "Man, everything people have said about this man, I don't understand it, you know? And so I'm being recruited now. So
Yeah.
as
Oh,
I'm up
yeah.
on the floor, he looks up in the back as you see the banners in the back swing, and he said, you know, we got a center coming out from California, and we think he's going to make a really nice fit with our basketball team. And if we can get you here as a guard, you can fit pretty well with a guy we have here already, in Steve Alford. And you guys can form a pretty nice backcourt playing with each other. And he said, and I think if you come here, we have a chance to go after a national championship. Now, a lot of coaches have said that, and but I didn't, I didn't took it with a grain of salt. But you come here, we can go do this. No coach ever said a national championship. They said a conference championship, or their conference, but he said national championship. And so I watched the game. I went to the team breakfast, watched them eat prior to them going through their walkthrough on the floor. And I had the breakfast, saw how they interact with each other. But I knew then it was mounting that I was going to be going to Indiana. And
Wow.
I watched the game, watched the fans, the interaction with the fans in the stands. And they won the game that day. And I looked at it, I said, I think this is the place.
Wow.
And we finished the game. And then my time was, they had an afternoon game. And so they were just taking me back to Indianapolis to fly out. And Coach Knight drove me back with a couple other assistants. And they said, this has never happened. He has never driven a kid on his visit back to the airport.
Wow.
And he was sharing with me how he thought it was important that I come to Indiana. And when I got back to school, I told Kent Davison and Jim Carey, I said, I think I'm going to go to Indiana. And then I called them up and we said that we're going to go here. And that was it.
Wow. Great story. And, growing up in Indiana, I just think of, just that tradition, the culture that Coach Knight always had. And so, yeah, he picking on you for having, a number in your head and a gold chain, but then you're going to be wearing those candy stripe warm-up pants, baby.
And short shorts,
Oh, yeah.
All those things,
Oh, that's great.
That's what you saw. You saw the tradition. You saw former players.
Yes.
Back for those games, what they were doing in life, and that's something that Coach always preached at Indiana. Sure, you want to do things in the immediate future. What's going to be doing next year? What are you going to be doing this following year? He said, but I want it to be 25 and 30 years from now. He's projecting, I want to see what you're doing 25, 30 years from now. That's the meaning of an Indiana basketball player, because you only have, as you only have a short window to be a player, and then it's over. Then what's next? And that's what he was trying to get across.
See, and I love that he was so forward thinking, but yet, so many people have so many different opinions of the legendary Coach Bob Knight. The first thing that comes to mind is his boorish behavior and his attitude and his temperament. But man, I think about how he got the best out of his players and the best out of his teams and demanded the best out of you and challenged your mental toughness. And I love that, because I sit there and think of my relationship with Coach Joby Wright and, learning from his background, coming from Savannah, Georgia. And then, those assistant coaches that you guys had. Ted Kitchell from my high school played for Coach Knight. And then his cousin John played at Purdue, and, the rivalries. And I just think about how great of a program and all the things that Coach Knight did for his players that don't get talked enough. And even like Landon Turner, when he had his car accident, all the things that he did for Landon Turner. And yet you also look too at all the Indiana players that had gone through the program that went on to have amazing careers, either in basketball, NBA, NCAA, or just got great jobs through the alumni program at Indiana. And everybody was always so successful. And those are things, again, that I think need to be talked about and recognized more. And it's just amazing the job that Coach Knight had done with all those players, and just like yourself, Smarty.
Yeah, Carol and I were watching, my wife, we were watching this thing on Vince Lombardi, this past weekend, and just watching it and seeing how demanding, how tough, how hard he was with his players. But then you started hearing the stories from the players, some of their wives, about what he had done behind the scenes that no one saw. You just saw this hard driving guy.
Yeah.
Playing kind of very demanding. Okay. Very demanding. Going to push you to that ultimate breaking point to see, can you cross over? Okay. Or were you going to back up? Went too far. Yes, on occasions. But for the most part, he was trying to get you to think about life in a different lens. And I never forget, several times he got on me. But, I think it was, I had a class. I had a geology class. And, and people always said, guys in geology classes, it rocks for jocks. They would say that. This class had 400 students in it, so it couldn't be cut up to what people were saying about it, And so as I'm in this, getting ready for the class to start, there's a grad AD comes in, a young assistant comes in, passes a note to the professor, and he looks at the note, reads the note, and he looks at it, and he gets to his platform and he says, "Keith Smart, is Keith here today?" And I kind of, in the middle of the 400 students, I raised my hand. I go, "Yes, I'm here." He said, "Well, Coach Knight wants to see you as soon as you finish your final class today."
Oh,
so this is my
good thing you was in class.
I'm in class. Oh, exactly. So this is my second class of the day. And so I have 3 more classes to go to. And I'm trying to figure out, did I do anything wrong? Did I miss the class? So the whole day I'm thinking about this, I did. And so finally I finished my last class. I go over to the assembly hall and I go to Coach's office and I said, "Coach, you wanted to see me?" He said, "Yes." "You get my note, my message?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I just want you to know I'm paying attention to everything you're doing."
Oh.
And I was like, wow,
Wow.
What if I was not? So I knew I was not going to be missing class. For the national championship, we finished the game, and obviously Coach said, "Hey, you guys go out and have fun, do whatever you want to do." And we on the plane flying back the next day. He said, "Now, if any of you," we had the big welcome back to the school parade there. He said, "If any of you have class tonight, I want you in those classes." Because some of us still had some night. I have 2 night classes also. He said, if you have classes, I want you guys in those classes. So we just had the introduction back to the team, to the fans there.
Yeah, back to the campus. Yeah.
Campus, and then we finished that, and then we had to go to class.
Wow.
So
wow.
That's kind of where he was. I had my youngest son, my oldest son came a little early. He was in the hospital, and we were in the hospital with him, Andre. And Coach called and my wife every day in there. We lost our in a fire in Bloomington. We had a place out there while I was still playing, and lost everything. I mean, we only had our clothes on our backs, my wife and I and my young son. That's all we had. And Coach said, "Hey, if you guys need a place to stay, I have a house here that's not being used. You guys can go stay over there." From college down for, I think it was probably 7 years at that time, and he still thought that we can stay in a place. He was looking out for us that way. But my in-laws were
awesome,
so we stayed there. So all those little things like that. There's so many more of them. Of the man. And again, it goes back to that first conversation. It's not about what you're doing 5 years from now. It's what you're doing 10, 15, 20, and 30 years from now.
Wow. That's just great story. Love hearing those things, because again, those kind of things aren't publicized enough about what a great man and how good he was to his people. Yeah. It took a special person, and Bobby Knight would tell you that before you're coming there. Hey, he's only going to recruit, certain kind of people that have got that toughness, who, he can push and challenge and hold accountable and, teach you that mental toughness that's going to prepare you with those life lessons for the rest of your life. But, if you were able to withstand, being in a Bobby Knight program, you were prepared for life.
Yeah, because people always say, I thought my high school coach that I played for, a guy named Teddy Brown, was very demanding. We practiced at 6 a.m, very demanding.
That's like a John Chaney right there, who
Exactly.
may he rest in
Exactly.
peace.
My junior college coach, and Jim Carey, was very demanding. So at that time, coached,
Yeah.
you assume and thought, and so when I got to Coach Knight, I never forget Daryl Thomas, my teammate. He said, "Let me tell you, brother, you have never experienced someone like this guy." But
Uh,
now, my junior college coach, Jim Carey, was also a psychology teacher,
okay.
and so he shared with me one day. He said, "You should take a couple of these courses, these psychology classes, And I said, "Okay." He said, "Because I don't know if you mentally deal with things as you move into life, later in life." And so I started taking a few of those classes, and I started to get into sports psychology. And it was a thing called psychology of coaching, one of the courses that I had. And I got into that, never ever thinking that I would ever down the road be coaching. But I think a lot of that helped me mentally focus on what I need to get done as I was playing in an environment that was so demanding. When you get to those environments that they're thinking about championships, companies that are thinking about becoming globally and great, there is a push on those programs that are thinking about nothing but championships and being the best companies in the world.
That's right.
And they need to find people that can function in those environments. They have to find players that they can function. That's why the DNA of a player that perhaps at that time went to Indiana, they were looking for a prototype of player that can play there, that can handle it, that can deal with that. Because once you got to the games, we always said the practices, not the Allen Iverson deal of practice.
We're talking about practice.
Oh man, practice was so demanding that you couldn't wait for a game.
That's right.
You got to a game and you're like, "Hey, you guys are in trouble because what we just went through in practice, this game is a piece of cake." And that's what he was trying to get across to us, and we were able to handle that. We had a drill, denial drill, that the pass is trying to be made to the wing entry, and you had to deny that pass. And of course, I had a coach, Ron Fellings, who would always, make sure I couldn't, the guy would make the catch on the ball. He would give a fake one way, and I would anticipate that way, and the guy gets open. And of course, coach would see that every time and yell, "Smart." When you hear that name, it wasn't Keith, it was Smart. Yeah. And you would hear that name, "Oh, shucks, I did something." And,
yeah, here it goes.
I never forget Assembly Hall, and on the stairs. I must have ran those stairs thousands of times. I had a thing that I would say, and we all say it. I would, you play, you make a mistake, and you would say, "My bad or my fault," right? And coach would always say, "We know it's your fault. Everyone in this damn building knows it's your fault. If I hear you say my fault or my bad again, I'm going to run you on those stairs until you fall out," right? Oh. And right as we concluded that conversation, I said, "My fault, coach." Right then, he said, "Get on those stairs." And I went up to run those stairs, man. And I went back there several years ago, man. And I walked up there and I looked, I said, "My goodness, this is pretty far from the floor." And I was telling my wife, I was like, "I used to run these stairs all the time." It was those little things there that helped prepare me for things that I faced later on in life. And coach always said, no one's going to pat you on the back in the future to tell you great job, to tell you, "Oh, you did a wonderful job today." You have to know that you did a great job today. You're going to have to take care of your family and things like that. And no one's going to say to you, "Oh, I really appreciate the fact that you put food on the table, gave us an opportunity to go to college, allowed me the freedom to go to a movie theater, or you help a family and they're going to call you every single day. Thank you so much." No, you're going to have to know that you did all the right things to help that person and then also help your family, help yourself, based on that teaching from a long time ago. We all went back a little bit later on, finally coming back to Bloomington.
Right. Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Yeah, and you can tell that group of all the former players. I mean, we got players from every era of Coach Knight that's there. And we're back in the little holding room before we came out on the floor. And we're sitting there, and I looked around the room and I said, what did I notice about everyone in the building, in that room that we were waiting? We were all talking to each other. And in one era, we'd be talking to another group, someone who played there in 70, 77, and someone in the 80s, and here's someone in the 90s. And we all have the same conversation. There's a brotherhood. And so I'm looking around the room and I'm noticing no one has facial hair.
Oh.
And it's like, had a mustache or a beard, things like that, but no one else. I mean, it's only a handful that may have that. And that was something that we never had, facial hair in Indiana. And here we are all these years removed. Here we are still doing the same,
Came back clean cut, yeah.
Clean cut. And
yeah.
The other part of that was Isaiah Thomas was in the, we were all in the hallway getting ready to come out on, and we're sitting there, and another player, Stu Robinson. And you know the style, you have a jacket on, some jeans, and your shirt not tucked in your pants. It's out. That's the style today.
Yeah.
And so Isaiah comes by and he says, Stu, look at you. And everyone's looking like, what's the deal? He said, you're the only one with your shirt not tucked in, know? And we are 50 years old and 55 and all these guys still policing each other, Yeah. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty
of it. It was so ingrained, yeah. See, I love it, Smarty. Just the fact, and I want to dive more into that reunion of night at Assembly Hall here in a minute. But again, just hearing these stories and how he prepared you, I think is great. And I think back too, because my degree is also in psychology, and I think about how much I've used that throughout my coaching career and how it's helped prepare me. But when did you meet your wife, Carol? Did you meet her at IU or prior to IU?
No, we met at IU. We met we met my senior year, and at that time, we weren't supposed to go out to the bars to have like a regular college student. Once we got in season, coach didn't want us going out, hanging out, stuff like that. And so that's something I was not doing. I wasn't going out to those places once the season started. And so one night, man, a couple guys, a friend of mine, one of my teammates, he calls me and he says, we had a little room in my dorm, had the phone. So I answer the phone. He goes, hey, man, what are you doing? And it was a Saturday night. I said, man, I'm in my room, man. He goes, you got to come out, man. I said, man, we're not supposed to be out. He said, no, man, you better come out here, man. We're seniors, man. You better come out here, man. We hang out having a good time. This is our senior year. I managed to do it. I put on some clothes and walked across campus down to Kirkwood and went to this one little place that everyone went to. And so I go in there, I see half the team in there already, what is going on here? And so the one teammate of mine, he's a friend of the girl that he knew was good friends with Carol. And so he said, hey man, my girlfriend here has a friend that I would like, she wants you to meet her. And I was like, man, look, I'm not going to be in that long, man. I'm getting ready. I'm just in here. I'm going to get out of here, man, because I don't feel comfortable. If coach finds out that I'm out here, man, I'm in
There's that fear.
There's that fear. And so Carol at that time was on the floor dancing and finished up dancing and came back over to the table where her friends were all sitting. And my friend goes, Mark, was named Mark Robinson. He said, hey, man, that's the girl right there. And we introduced me to her. We started talking. Somehow someone came up to me and asked me a question. And I said, he said, who is this? And I just said, this is my girlfriend.
Oh.
And from there we hit it off, man. And we hit it off and, started dating then. And now her dad, my father-in-law, teaches at IU.
Okay.
He's a law professor there. He's retired, but he still teaches, and, but he teaches taxation at the law school. And so I called Carol after that time we met that night. And, the next weekend I called her house. And so I called the house and Dad, Mr. Popkin, answered the phone. I said, yes, this is Keith Smart. I'm calling for Carol. And he, of course, being at IU all these years, he's a big basketball fan as well. So he goes, wait a minute. So he calls Carol to the phone. He said, this is Keith Smart. What is he doing calling for you?
Oh, good.
and we hit it off, man. And ever since, from 1988, and Carol at that time had just come back to IU. So she wasn't there during the 87, caught up in all what had happened. So she wasn't into just Keith Smart, the basketball player, and the guy, all that stuff. She was just like, oh, he did that? Oh, I don't even know about that kind of stuff,
Yeah, right.
Then ever since then, we've been together with our family, have grown with 2 kids.
See, and that's wonderful. Think of what IU has meant to you. I mean, you meet your wife, you have, Jared and Andre.
Right.
Wow. I mean, you're known for the shot. And I mean, we got to get into that too, but great story. And I've got to meet Carol a handful of times, and she's just a wonderful woman. And Smarty, let's be honest, you and I, we both overachieved.
Oh yeah. When they were with the wood bats, we were hitting with concrete bats.
For sure. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. As I said, we both bought over our pay grade.
I'll tell you, big time.
Right.
I love it. But she's just an outstanding person, and brings out the best versions of us off the floor. And to have that stability, and to have that person with us through our travels and our journeys. It's not an easy life as a coach. And, you're going from city to city and moving the family and changing schools. And, to have that support system, we're blessed and fortunate. So Carol, if you're watching this, shout out to you. And hopefully when this COVID stuff calms down, we'll all be able to get together and go to dinner,
For sure.
Well, let's go back to that senior year, Smarty, where I think about that team, that roster. You mentioned Steve Alford, who was, a high, who played for his dad, Sam. And then I think of, Dean Garrett, on that team. And I think of Daryl Thomas, and then Oliphant and Cray Smith and Joe Hillman. And matter of fact, Coach Jerry Sloan's son, Brian, was on that team as well, if I remember.
Yeah. Brian was my locker mate. We shared this next to each other.
Okay.
And so we had a nice relationship of growth with each other because we were close right there. I was close with other players on the team.
Sure.
But because we would always sit right next to each other, and he really helped me out a great deal. And then later on, as you know, Coach Sloan, I got to know Coach Sloan pretty much through his son. But the fact Brian was right there. Even Brian and I went out for a Halloween costume party one time dressed as cavemen, and we had on these little outfits these young ladies had made for us that we wore. But yeah, Brian was my teammate there, and our group got along extremely well with each other. Daryl Thomas was the anchor in my life, and also in Dean Garrett's life when we first got to campus, along with Rick Calloway. We all lived in pretty much the same dorm area, but that team was so close. And I think that's something that coach also did. He pushed us so hard to galvanize with each other so that each one of us could help get ourselves out of the situation by helping the next person. And that's what he did. And a lot of times in certain games that you may be down, but it would be more the coaches were talking to you, but it was more the players that was talking to you about keep your focus, So when I got to Indiana, of course, with Steve Alford, as I made the commitment to go to Indiana, and I heard about this All-American. This guy was an All-American, the best player in the Big Ten. And then when I got to Indiana and I saw this kid, I'm thinking, this is the guy? This is what they're talking about? Because, I didn't watch the Indiana games on TV. So I only knew these players through the print, the media or print. I didn't know them by their face, who they were. And so when I finally saw Steve for the first time and watched him in that game and watched him play and how he moved and everything, but as a competitor, you're thinking, oh, I'm better than this guy here, Yeah. And you never forget, we started playing just pickup. Didn't realize once you start playing against the Indiana motion offense, how much you are moving and chasing and getting screened, and these guys are trying to get Alford open, even in pickup basketball.
Right.
So I learned that. The other part that I learned so much about Alford was his conditioning level, and to be able to move how he did throughout the whole time. So in our conditioning, we would have to go to this soccer field to train. and offered, and we would run these 55-yard sprinters, 110, and then 220s. And this was pretty much every day getting ready for basketball practice for midnight madness.
Preseason conditioning, sure.
Preseason. And we would go through this thing, and I just looked at this guy. I could never beat him in the 55s. You think my speed that I had, I could beat him, but we had already run 2.5 miles to get to the training facility, to get over to the practice field where we train at, the soccer field. So he already had a tank of energy already that I didn't know about. So 2 miles, 2.5 miles to get there. We got on the track, and as soon as we got on the track, we started running. And so the first 55, okay, I'm all right. I got him. Second one, third. And that particular day, Tim Garl, the trainer who's still there. He would say, here are the numbers. So we're going to do 6 55s, 8 110s, 6 220s. Or the number may be on, depending on how he felt that day. He would say, we're doing 12, 12, 12, And so those numbers and trying to run like that, I had a healthy respect for the level of conditioning that this guy was in and all the other guys that they were in. Because when you first looked at them, you saw players that you thought they go to Indiana. But when you saw them get together as a team, you saw why they were at Indiana. And so I knew from a very young age as a coach how important conditioning is, because once you are conditioned to play a certain, you no longer have to worry about being tired. You don't think about being tired. It's just the talent of the other team that beats you. It's not because of your lack of conditioning. And I knew that was very important, with being at Indiana. But that's being around those type of players and seeing how coaches' approach was and how these players self-police themselves with that. But those are the teammates. Today, from time to time, I'll start a text chain. I may text several guys. And before you know it, all of us are on the text for about 3 days.
That's
different things, But again, that's because of the relationship that coach was trying to push us to have 20 years later from your playing days.
That's awesome. And, you think about the stories that you're telling, that work ethic that you guys had, about Steve Alford's stamina and what you call a motor now, which is now considered a skill set to be able to work that hard. But beautiful story. You talked about, Daryl Thomas, and I think about the importance of Daryl Thomas because I'm thinking back to, you hitting that shot to win the championship. And I'm thinking back in my mind how smart Daryl Thomas was when he caught the ball against that, before you had that shot, just that simple pump fake to create the space to pass back out to you, where you took that one dribble pull up from the baseline, which is now known as the shot. But yet what happened before that shot, Smarty, I think about how smart of you when you fouled Derek Coleman and kind of grabbed him by the arm, spun him around, and he missed it to set up that whole play. So think of all those details and tangibles that went into the shot that is now world famous, of you guys knocking off Syracuse and 3 NBA players, Coleman and Cycli. And I mean, that's a great win. And I'm 74-73 after you hit that shot with about 3 seconds left, in New Orleans. Wow.
Yeah. Well, Scott, the pump fake that Daryl had, it was drill work, drill, pump fake. Don't have a shot, move it. Yep. Looking down with Joby Wright, working with he and Daryl Thomas, he and Dean Garrett and Matt Filkowski and Brian Sloan, all the big guys, and they're going to the basket, pump fake, don't have anything, pass it out. And that was one of those moments. You look at fouling, going for the ball to foul a player rather than wrapping them up and being an intentional foul, and maybe they get the ball back. All that was detailed drills, So those moments, everything came back without someone coaching you. It was because you had been trained in a tough environment. So now
repetition,
basketball environment playing, and these things like automatic. They were automatic, to the point where I made a pass to Daryl Thomas. At least I thought where he was going to go. I made that pass to him. Well, he got held up, and I made that pass, and the ball sailed out of bounds. He didn't get to it, and it was a turnover. And right away, I saw Joe Hillman run to the table, and I knew he was coming in for me and take me. And so I'm out of the game. But as I'm sitting down, obviously Joby Wright came to talk to me and said, "Hey, game, you're gonna be okay." But then again, it goes back to those players, my teammates. Hey, keep your head in the game, man. You're gonna get back in. You got to stay focused. Got to stay focused. And as I'm watching go on, I'm thinking, okay, man, I'm probably done. I'm not playing this game. Probably put back in. But eventually, he called me and said to me to get back into the game. He said, "Do you want to go back in and play?" And I said, "Yeah." And I tell people this story. I said, when Coach pulled me back up to the table to go play, he said, "I'm giving you 2 minutes, 2 minutes to go in there and do something. And if you haven't done anything in 2 minutes, then I can't keep you in the game."
Wow.
So he said, "If I take you out for the 2 minutes, right? And if I don't put you back in, I don't know what you're going to be doing at Indiana."
That's all the motivation you needed.
So everybody thinking I was playing in that game to win the championship. No, man, I was playing that game to win, to keep my scholarship, wasn't coming back out of the game again, And
wow.
I went in, and it was a moment to where I was always kind of the player in that group that when things were not working, Steve couldn't get a shot, Daryl Thomas struggling, Dean couldn't get a shot, Rick Callaway or whoever else, Steve Owl, it was my turn now to make a play. And that's kind of how that game went. But during that stretch prior to us getting even to the tournament, we had a couple games against Northwestern, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And us being the top 1 or 2 teams in the country at that time, and that time those teams were kind of like in that bottom level, and we didn't dominate those teams. Those teams always played us great, but Daryl Thomas carried us through those moments. We'd lose 1 or 2 of those games, not starting off the tournament at Indianapolis.
And you know what, Smarty? If my memory serves me correctly, I remember you guys were at Northwestern, not playing very well. Daryl Thomas was kind of the glue that kind of got you to that win. And I can remember Bobby Knight on like THR. And I mean, here I am, a few years younger than you, but I remember all those press conferences and interviews with Coach Knight, and he's like, "Oh, we're terrible. We have no chance." And I'm sure that's what he's telling to the press, but probably to you guys, hey, if we work hard, we got a chance to win this national championship. I mean, is that true, or is that just a guess?
No, that's exactly true, because
wow,
the saying to the outside world was that we're not a good basketball team.
Right.
That I don't know if this team has it in them to win a national championship game, to be a championship team. But inside, he was saying, we have to do these things here because we have a chance. He said that in my thinking the day I got recruited there, that we're trying to win a national championship.
Right.
So what he was saying on the inside was completely different from what he was saying outside.
Right.
On the outside, he was just, so if we did slip up a little bit, then he was a genius because he told us he wasn't.
But the method to his madness was to lower the expectations out in the public eye, but yet to tell you guys to build your confidence. Hey, I believe in you, and we can do this if we galvanize, have the chemistry, and execute. I mean, again, that's just brilliant because, again, there was always a method to Coach Knight's madness, and that's just one little example of what he's preparing you guys for. Because think about it. Father Time is undefeated. Right. No one stops the clock, but the great ones know how to down. And your guys' mindsets with how he would challenge you mentally and physically every day, that's what slowed that clock down for you guys to be able to properly execute, for you to take that one dribble pull up, knock it down, boom, the shot. And you beat Jim Boeheim in Syracuse.
Well, you see, he said that he knew what his team was. He got the 2 players that he thought could help him win the national championship. Myself, Dean Garrett. Now, had that come true, no one knows. I'm assuming that if we get these 2 players, it fits what we already have.
Yep. His philosophy and his style of play. Yep.
It will fit what we have. And they also will be able to bring something out that we don't have anyone on our roster that can do these things. Okay, you didn't have a shot blocker like Dean Garrett or a rebounder like Dean Garrett, a guy to play with some toughness. We didn't have him yet. When Dean had it, that's what he brought. You know,
Yeah.
Earl Thomas had actually beefed up to play center the year before we got there.
Yeah, a
So
little bit undersized. Yeah.
yeah, made a 6'7". They made him gain weight to play center in the Big Ten. At that time, big
Wow.
bruising guys.
Yeah.
Well, then we get Dean, and now Daryl now has to go the other way. He has to now lose all this weight. A poor thing, man. You had to go through all of that. You know,
Yeah.
what the coach did, he set the tone because we were in before the season started, we were in the locker room. And he said to the team, he said, Daryl, Steve Alford, Daryl Thomas, Steve Alford, and Todd Meyer, you three will be the first group of seniors to graduate from here and not win a Big Ten championship. So what did that do right there? It galvanized the team. Well, man, you know, we got to get you guys a Big Ten championship ring, you know. He said, you'll be the first group of seniors that ever played for me that didn't win a Big Ten championship.
Wow.
So it pushed us again together to focus on the Big Ten championship, you know. So as we went out to start playing, we were not playing for us. It was playing for that group of seniors. He said, you guys will be the only ones in the room to sit at the table and not have a Big Ten championship ring.
Wow.
Okay. And now here they are.
He's pushing them buttons, baby.
He pushed those buttons. You know, when I finished playing and got ready to get into coaching, and I asked Dan Dawkins, I asked a question to him. I said, you know, we were talking about coaching and that, and I said, man, I got to ask you a question. I said, do you guys sit in a meeting prior to practice and determine that this is what you're going to do today, or who you're going to challenge today, and things like that? He said, oh yeah, coach always plan things out. And I said, you know why? Because it's too organized. You know, it was never like off the cuff or things like that. So it was just too organized how things were done, you know. So today, you know, we had this thing when you come on the floor, you had to go through this ball slaps, you know, a certain dribble, right hand, left hand, behind the back, legs, and all this stuff here. And jump rope before you come on the floor and start your shooting workout program. And I remember one day I was coming in a little late, so I kind of went through half of it, got on. Coach comes flying out on the floor and go, you see right there, you cheating everything you need to do. If you cheat on this now, you will cheat later in life.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, you know. And so I knew then that and he was kind of planning these certain things to kind of have different trigger points to push those players that he felt he can push them a certain direction, you know. And I was one of them. I remember when he got on me one time and I wasn't playing. He sat me for a couple games, you know.
Oh, I remember you telling me this story when we were at the NBA Summer League in Vegas and we went to dinner, and you told me a story about how he set you for like 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, yes, please share that. Share that.
You know, he you know, when I played that summer, I made the Pan American team. And we played
with Coach Denny Crum.
Yeah, Coach Denny Crum, right. And I played there. And and a reporter asked me, he said, well, oh, you play for Coach Crum and you play for Coach Knight. What do you think? Is there anything different about the two? And I just said, you know, well, you know, Denny Crum's style kind of fits me, you know, fits my style of play. He presses, he runs and things like that. Yeah. And I said that. And somehow that got back to Coach, you know, and Coach
hey, he doesn't miss anything, right?
And this is before social media, you know, so he got everything. And so he said to me, I came back, he said, you know, you should transfer it. You should go to Louisville. And I'm kind of like, he's told a lot of players, you need to transfer, you won't play here this year, you know, but that's just him telling the senior you won't play. And so as we moved through the season, you know, I was playing well. He said, you're not playing Indiana basketball. You're playing to go to the pros. You're playing to go to the NBA. You know, you're playing that way. And he kind of knocked me down, you know. And so I got benched for these couple games. And at the same time, while he's taking me through this, he's talking to my mom and my dad and telling them, look, I'm going to take Keith through some things. And he's probably not going to play for a couple games. But I want you to know that we thing under control. And so what does that do? Now this is happening. So when I call my mom and say, hey, I don't know why I'm not playing, all she say is, baby, just keep working hard. Just keep working
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Coach was working her on the other side, you know.
yeah. You didn't know he was calling your mom and dad.
So we going through that portion, and eventually, I never forget the first game, which no one told me I wasn't starting. That next game, that game, first game, I didn't play. So they made the introduction to all the players, and then all of a sudden, my name doesn't get called. So I'm thinking, because I was like pretty much the second to the last person to get called, or the last person got called, and I didn't hear that. And so I figured, all right, I'll get in the game later on. Coach is going through something, right? So now game moves on. I don't get in the game. First half, don't play. Second half, don't play. No one's talking to me now about this. And so I don't play for the first game. Come to practice the next day, no one has said anything to me again. Next game, don't play. Then finally, we're getting ready to play Purdue. And so I'm thinking of playing this game, but I don't know if I will play in this game. And so the game moves on. Coach calls me and said, "Hey, Keith, smart. So I go into the game and I come off a screen and I take a shot and I make the shot. And he goes, Smart, I don't want you shooting the basketball. I want you passing, cutting, and screening. And I said, then take me out. And I said that. And my roommate,
Oh boy.
rose up by the bench. He said, man, when you said that, I heard that so loud. And so Coach calls me over in the break in the game. He calls me over. He said, now, that's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to stand up for yourself.
Wow. Just a test. Just a test.
Role. I was going to keep you in this role until you said something for yourself. And I did. And after that, I got back in the starting lineup and started playing and ended up playing catch up for my senior year, but I ended up having a really good run down the stretch.
Oh, wow. Great story. Because again, all he was doing was just testing your character. He was testing your mental toughness. And again, that mindset. He was going to bring the best out of you. And if you think about in today's society, these kids are so entitled. If they're not playing, they're hitting the transfer portal. They didn't have that toughness to stay in it,
Right. I look and say, okay, what happens when what you love to do or want to do gets taken away from you? What do? So I loved playing basketball. I was competing. Then all of a sudden that gets taken away from me.
Oh. But
at a particular time to where it won't be lost, where it's going to be, where it's going to be a thing where you can't recover from it,
Yeah.
So what life when you go through that, you're going to have to figure out a way. What do you do next? Do you keep working or do you shut down? And so I knew my son went off to school to play, and he wasn't particularly happy with with something. And I said, "What are you going to do about it?" I just asked him, "What are you going to do about it?" So I'm coach with my profession, but I got to be dad. Also.
That's right.
I said, "Well, if you have an issue with this player, you two need to get together, and you need to go talk with him. You need to talk with your coaches. You need to talk with this."
I love it.
And work that relationship. And that's how you develop that relationship. And that's what they end up doing. And next thing you know, they have a good year, And
so, great advice.
So I just the communication portion of it. Who are you going to turn to when you start to feel that you're being pushed away from something? Then you find those people that you can rely on, and they help get you back on track.
Oh, great stuff, Smarty. Great stuff. And I love it. I'm again just thinking of so many life lessons that you're sharing that are so innate for you because you were drilled on it and you had repetition that now it's become a lifestyle for you, but also part of your philosophy as you get into your coaching career at the NBA level, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all these things, from my high, I was very fortunate. I look back on where I've gone and how I got to these different points in my life. My high school coach, how his training, 6 o'clock in the morning workouts training, disciplines. I'm an early morning person. You are too, but life forces us to get up early. Our job is forces us to get up early.
Yeah.
So being around that environment, the high school that I ended up going to, McKinley High School, was known for playing for state championships. So that mindset is always different. Their approach, how they do things. Yeah. My junior college coach, Jim Carey, won at that time. The NIT was a big tournament. Was pretty big. he won the NIT tournament. So he won NCAA, junior college, 2 junior college championships back to back at Moberly Community College.
Yeah.
So his mindset was always championship thinking. So I was always around that. Then, of course, I go to Indiana, then I'm there with that championship thinking. So those little things that you focus on when you were young gets poured into you, conditioning. I mean, even to a point where when I was at Indiana, we had our team meals, and they were basically centered around pasta, with sauce or with meat sauce. You would also have a hamburger patty, things like that, pancakes, right? Scott,
Carbs and protein.
literally, I would still eat that when I was playing, and then also as coaching. That was my pregame meal.
Yeah.
I never deviated from that. Then later on I did, but that was just that what I was trained and taught the right way. I felt that taking care of your body with the right foods and things like that. Guy wanted to give me a piece of fried chicken. I'm like, oh man, you can't eat that, man. That grease is going to upset you. Went through all those things, but those are things I would learn. But things that you're learning while you're working with young players and people, coaching people also, you can share those stories. You can share those stories because you have already gone through it.
That's right. Those experiences.
You can share with them because now they're on that track that you were once on, and you can help see some of that.
Yeah, see, and I love that. And when I think of that championship mindset, immediately my mind drifts to think about what Nick Saban's doing, just like what Bobby Knight was doing, that Alabama football team. I mean, he has a system, he has a philosophy, he recruits players that fit that system. Then he starts preparing their mindsets to, compete at a certain level. So there's parallels to why that is successful, whether, it's on the field, on the court, or in life or in business. It's a mindset.
Yeah, you're right. And you're a very humble guy. You've coached championship teams and you cut the nets down and all the places you've coached and everything. And so when your approach to it, like your show now, you're trying to make it into a championship level show. You're coaching people every time you're on here. When you're bringing other people in to speak on here, you're coaching championship level the way you're doing it now. I saw your introduction that you sent me a couple of days ago, and I'm like, man, 10 years ago, look where you were compared to where you are now.
Thank you.
That's what you're trying to do with everything that you come in contact. We as coaches, once we move into that realm of coaches, we may not be a team of players, but we coaching a team of people.
That's right.
So it could be one person, it could be 50 people, it could be at a clinic or whatever it might be. But these are all things you learn from the places that you were, and just listen, I tell you, in the beginning of the show, with my wife and I watching since my son plays football, I would never get Carol to sit there and watch a football documentary,
Right. Yeah.
Because we have a son that does play in college. She pays attention because she wants to just know more and more about these things, And so as we're sitting there watching this, I'm just seeing and hearing all the parallels that have taken place back then, already, to what I experienced and to what I hear other coaches talk about, the championship level coaches. And then also you start to learn, there's a book, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's called My Losing Season. And it just goes to the things of that sometimes you always think that you learn a lot because you win a championship, but you also learn a lot when you lose a great deal.
Amen.
Because you start to find character and development of skills that you have to have that's different than a champion coach. But sometimes someone who wins, and we all want that, all of a sudden adversity hits at some point. It may be a smaller level, it may be a big level, but then how do you coach in life and coach your teams out of those situations? When I got ready to get into coaching, something Coach Knight shared with me, he said, look, make sure you organize, prepared, because when you organize and prepared, you'll come out of those situations quicker than if you're someone who's a random type coach or a random type worker, But when you organize and you prepared, because now you have tracks that you can lay down. Why did I fail? What happened here? Always document your stuff. I use this little blue pad, and I keep notes, and so I can refer back to situations that I'm dealing with or going through, and look at, okay, I did this. Why did I do that? I should be doing this over here, because you're always preparing for the next step.
Yep.
That's what you're always looking at, but you can only prepare for the next step based on how.
That's right. It's so funny you say that, because here are my notes. And you just now said, that book, My Losing Season, I wrote it down immediately so I can go research that, read it, and grow from it and empower myself to be a better version of me.
Yeah. What is all the stuff that we acquired? Who was it? Denzel Washington was speaking, and he said, I've yet to see a hearse with a U-Haul attached to it.
I love it. Yeah.
Anything with you. So why do we want to harbor all the information that we have and not pass it on to someone else?
Amen.
That's what we're doing, and that's what having a show like yours has been able to do for so many people, to bring them on your show to talk about their experiences, to pass that on. And like you said, you're talking to someone, you write down something, you go back and look at that, but that's what happens. So you look at a championship coach, and that's when you read that book, you're going to see a championship coach of Nick Saban's caliber or Pat Riley caliber, and you will listen and read the stuff that they talked about, and then you'll read about a coach who struggled, and you will see the parallels. And what you'll find, the only difference was that this coach won, that coach didn't.
Yeah.
But they went through the same thing. You see championship level teams still go through issues that they have on those teams. A team that's not winning will have the same issues: playing time, shots, touches, football, whatever it might be. And the same thing happens on the championship level. The championship level team just has a thing of finally saying, let's put that on the back burner and focus on the goal and the team.
There you go.
Whereas a team that's not winning will continue to focus on the inner self more than anything else.
I like it. And that's great tools for the toolbox right there. And I'm thinking, what you said about minutes ago about organization and preparation. It's so key, because if you're not prepared, you can't just wing it. I mean, yeah, it may be a flash in the pan success, but for you to sustain success, that's where that organization and preparation and that attention to detail comes in. Because, if you don't pay attention to the details, man, little things become big things in a hurry, especially if you don't address them in a timely manner. And then with that energy and enthusiasm and that purpose, you start to inflict your will by leading by example. And I'm thinking about that as you're telling the stories, even with the example of your son. I mean, he's now wearing number 23, just like his daddy did. And I'm seeing, I've been watching him play for the University of Hawaii. Young man has worked extremely hard, and he's having great success. And that acorn didn't fall far from that tree. And I'm sure it's just, he's probably picked up more things by just modeling your behaviors and actions, what you may have shared with him verbally, Yeah, no,
you're absolutely right. Because, one thing as a dad and coach and, and father, I saw a lot of coaches, a lot of players, former players with kids now pushing their kids. I want to do that. Certain moments that I wanted to do that, because I knew that, okay, you got to get to this level of training or work ethics if you're trying to keep moving in this direction. So I didn't push him in a certain direction. I was going to be dad. I just wanted to be dad.
Yeah.
I didn't fight with you on you having to work out. I wanted to fight with you on you having to do your homework, things like that. And so, when you start hearing, obviously, being in college, you dealing with the media. So he'll say certain things, and he'll say, well, my dad talked about this. We went over to visit him when he first got to school, and I did an interview with him, and he just said, my dad always said, you got to work hard for what you're trying to accomplish. And they said, well, that's why I work the way I work, and they started talking about, well, when practice is over, he would go over to the machine, the passing machine, and run his load up a few footballs in there and run his own routes, And so when you hear those things, you're like, okay, he's figuring it out. He's pushing himself to the level. Of course, he, think he can jump a little bit, And so comes home. I think I might have shared the picture with you, the photo, but he comes home and we have a spot in the house. And he said, Dad, can you touch that? And I said, I said, I don't know. He said, well, I tell you what, these young kids today all want to have a tattoo. He said, Dad, I tell you what, if you can touch this spot up here on the ceiling, on the wall, I'll never bother you again about a tattoo or earring, being a college kid. And I said, all right. So I'm thinking in my mind,
Oh
how
boy.
can I get up there? As you get older, you're not thinking about getting up there. Your issue is the landing part.
That's right. Hurt when I come down.
It's gonna hurt to land. So I said, all right. So I first time and you're overthinking it, you can't get up there, And so I went up to touch it, couldn't get it. He started laughing. Oh, I can get this done. I want to try one more time. Couldn't even come close to it, right? And finally I just gave it up. He said, okay, I can get it done. I said, no, son, I want to teach you something here. He said, one thing in life you gotta understand. Sometimes people are going to say things to you and it's not going to be the truth. So no, you still cannot get your ears pierced or get a tattoo,
I love it. That's a great story.
Of course, he ended up eventually getting everything done, but it was just a little moment there of teaching. And then he had a play last year where he went up and caught this pass over these people. And I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness, how he caught this ball. And I had a picture, right up in here that I have in my office. And I said, man, he went up and got that ball, and he said, I think I can jump higher than you could at that age. I said, you know what? You're probably right, son. You're probably right, And of course, he's won 2 bowl games, got 2 bowl game rings, won a championship here in California, state championship in football in college. And he goes, Dad, I think you're behind in the ring countdown.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love it. And again,
Mhm.
Smarty, I think too of the analogy, a candle does not lose its flame by igniting another flame.
Mhm.
And here you are igniting so many flames and empowering your sons. And I can remember just a couple weeks ago, Brandon's playing over in Europe professionally, and he had a triple double. Yet, he's away from home, and it's overseas, and there's challenges. And he starts sending us these messages on WhatsApp, and it was real positive and uplifting. And Kim looks at me, she goes, "Babe," she goes, "That's you talking." And
Mhm.
it almost brought a tear to my eye, because it's like it just makes you feel good that that you're helping your kids and you're guiding your kids, and you want to see them be successful, and you just try to steer them in a direction, but yet let them make mistakes and let them fail, because that's the best teachers in life, is sometimes to have a little setback.
Yeah, well, that's what you do. You lay out a direction, and they won't go on that direction like you want it. They may fall off, and you hope they get back to the line. They fall off, get back to the line.
Get back on the tracks.
Yeah, and you're just there to help them with that, And I always say this with young coaches who are coaching, like I right now, during this time has been a tough time for everyone, but it also been a great time for me to step back from it all and now becoming a mentorship program and a consulting program with several coaches that are in college and pros, and talking with them. We'll have chats and they'll call me up and we'll go over these different things, scenarios. And I say, one thing you got to understand, you're trying to coach these kids to where you are as a coach and person. They're not there. You have to coach them where they are.
Where they're at. Meet them where they're at.
You coach them where they are right now, and you're trying to get them to where you are.
Oh,
and I think
great point.
A lot of times we coach from our experience, and we say, well, hey, Chuck, got Chuck Person when I worked with him at Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he always had a statement. He made this statement, and I use it to this day. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I'm going to keep using this statement because I think it's very profound. And he said, we always say, well, didn't we talk about this in shoot around this morning? And you go in the game and the guys can't execute it. Didn't we talk about this yesterday at practice? And they can't put it together. And he said, you see, information without demonstration is just conversation.
Oh,
and
power.
I said, man, I'll tell you what, I'm going to use this. I'm always going to give you credit for saying it, but I'm going to use this, So when I give you information, I have to now make sure we have some demonstration by practicing, executing, talk about it, tell you how to get there. And now it's not just conversation anymore. We have now implemented it now, and we have worked at it. We've talked about it. We worked at it. Now it just comes down that, you know what? We're just not good enough to carry it out.
Wow.
But it wasn't from a lack of knowledge that we didn't go put this together and work on it. When you get ready for your show, I'm sure you probably prep yourself, prepare yourself, maybe even with yourself as you're being the interviewer,
That's right.
To get yourself ready. So all of a sudden you see this moment. And see, that's what happened with me. All those days of playing basketball on that court by myself put me in a mindset. So when I was in that particular moment,
you've already done it 1,000 times.
I've already seen it. And so it was strange, man, because people say I didn't look like I was emotionally excited about that moment, because I wasn't like running around, doing all of that. I was, but because I had already saw that. Nicholson Elementary, school behind my house, not that far from my house, and I would go shoot. And I would take that shot, falling out of bounds, make that shot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, make that shot, and then celebrate. I was celebrating 10 years, 15, 20 years before that moment. You talk in the house with the Nerf ball. We would have the little gallon milk jug, cut the bottom out of it, cut the jug in half, and we would pin that up on the wall, and was able to take shots off the glass, off the side of the wall on the right side, bounce it over to the other side. You knew exactly where to hit and make that shot.
Yeah.
So all the moments there is when you start to it start coming back later on in life. And the one saying, the instant superstar, the instant millionaire, whatever. No, man, that started way back.
That's right.
No one sees that road. Everyone sees the road that you're on now, but not the road that you were on to get to that point.
Amen. And I think that Chuck Person statement that you made, talk about the demonstration. And I think that's so vital right now, Smarty, with coaches, because this younger generation, these players are so visual. And I think they're so visual because they're constantly on their phones. They're constantly on their computers. They're constantly on their Xboxes or PS5s or whatever they are. And that visualization, if we as coaches don't use that technology that we have in front of us, because players are so visual, if we don't use that, it's a huge mistake as us as coaches not to use that technology available to us. I mean, we can sit there and talk to them because the best coaches are the best teachers. The best CEOs are the best teachers. So, we have to use those tools for that visualization for that player so they can see what we see, so we can help empower them to get to where they need to go, or where we know they can go. And we may have more belief in them than they do themselves, but we have to build up that confidence in that individual through that visualization and through that demonstration.
No, you're absolutely right, because you have young kids. We know how to communicate to them. We may call them and not get a return phone call for a week.
Yeah,
but we text them. It's like instant. They're gonna respond to a text. That's where we are. With some of the players that I've worked with, I would, as I'm breaking down film situations, in the game or with coverage or whatever it might be, I would videotape that what I'm communicating to them about, videotape that, put my little captions on it, and then text it to them. And immediately, pretty much, I'll get a response back. Oh, coach, now I see what you're talking about. And so, because that's how they respond to things now. You're taking a kid through a video, because he's going to be looking at video all day anyway.
He'll be on YouTube. Yep.
Yeah, that's what he's going to be looking at. And so the best way to communicate to them was to send film to them, in their medium that they're in. And that's how you got a better response for them. And I say, okay, tomorrow we're going to work on this right here. See this move right here? Because the best teacher for a drill that you're trying to set up is to look at the game. Create your drills from the game. I shared this with a coach.
Amen.
I said,
Amen.
Create your drills from the game, because we can have our own drills that we want to put together. It looks good on that blue paper, but the actual game drill is much better than that, because he's going to be in that more time than your drill that you have for practice.
Yeah.
And so we share that. And I showed. I said, just look at the game and see what drills you need. The game will teach you the drills that's needed. You
Yep,
know,
that's
and
right.
but that's how you have to communicate to them now. You know, I played over in Europe. You coached in Europe, and you know how lonely it gets over there for a young person. You
Yep.
know, you just going to practice, coming back, going home, going to practice, and everything. And that young players figure things out. And when I played over there, coach once told me, said, just play as long as you can, because
Yeah.
you won't be able to forever, you know. But as you
Yeah.
said, for the time, you know, just play as long as you can and learn as much as you can, because guess what? It's going to come back. I share with the guys, I said, you know, when you get to a veteran as a veteran player, and all the players start, you know, we joke with this with Vince Carter, they calling you old head, you know, old grandpa, you know, and you're an
Yeah.
old man, 38, 37, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you walk out of that door as a professional athlete at 37, 38, you become a young man again. You're a young man in life now. 38,
That's
39, Tom Brady, 40, 42.
43. Yeah.
But when he walks from his last game, he's going to be a young man.
Great
You know,
point.
so you have a whole life ahead of you to focus as a young person now who you just crossed over. You know, so you go from 1 minute you being an old pro, the next minute you're a young man, and now here comes life coming at you full speed. And that's what you're trying to get these young guys to focus on. And so I said, when you playing professional sports, you play it as long as you can. Your body holds up, you play it. And then once you're done, you move on. But you're learning things to help prepare you for later on. That's the
Amen.
biggest key there.
Amen. And see, and I
Mhm.
love that because I'm thinking about, the things that you're sharing, and I'm thinking about as coaches, as you talked about with videos and, your captions, for the video for them to see visually. Yeah, you got to emulate and you got to simulate
Yeah.
that game speed. Let them visually see what direction they're going to go as an individual to make the
Mhm.
team better. So I
Mhm.
love that emulation, simulation to make it as close as possible to that championship level. And then yet I can remember with some of my teams, I would use video from teams 2 years before we won a championship so they could visually see the execution of the play. Then that way it give them a visual picture of what they could do when we
Mhm.
put them in that same position. But yet when you go out and practice it, if you're not going game speed, those habits and that muscle memory is going to carry over, just like a golfer in a golf swing. You and I have
Mhm.
had this discussion before. You need that muscle memory and those mechanics, just like a la Steph Curry with that quick release. He's
Mhm.
done it thousands and thousands of times over and over, where he knows exactly what he can do when he's put in that situation.
No, you're right, and you talk about games because now from having a chance to coach and be around the NBA and be around the science of the NBA and all those things there. When you speak of game speed, you want to go game speed so that your body can respond to being at game speed.
That's
You
right.
know, because you are shifting a momentum shift, a deceleration coming into an acceleration that you have to now be able to still be on balance. That's why we talk game. That's why the old school coaches back when we grew up, they didn't understand. We didn't have the analytical part of the game
Right,
and
right.
and science behind it, but they had a notion to understand that you have to play at this speed because the game is going to require that speed. You know, we talked about the conditioning that I had to learn how to play in a motion offense. Why we did the 55s, 110s, 220, all those things there, because there's a different level of
Sure.
conditioning that you need to
Yep.
be in to run a passing game and run that shot clock for 35 seconds, and you still constantly pass and get rid of it,
Mhm.
move and cut those things there. You know, I remember when you try to put a passing game in sometime in the NBA, the guy like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Oh, I
Because
love it.
you didn't train for that, and so that's as you're coaching and teaching people on the airways, with the people you bring in contact, that's what you're trying to get them to go at life with game speed. You
Yep.
have to act it like that, and I think for having an athletic background, that you got to push through certain things, and you got to make sure you don't do things that's going to be detrimental to you trying to push through. you
Yep.
know
Learn from those mistakes and don't repeat those mistakes. Wow.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Smarty, this has been awesome, and you're dropping nuggets here with our viewers, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears here. Let's take it. Let's take it from like a year ago today,
Yeah.
February. Coach Bobby Knight is coming back into Assembly Hall. Who was the person who first contacted you to say, "Hey, we're going to do this for Coach Knight, and we hope we get Coach Knight, come back for that game in Purdue"? I mean, I remember Dickie V on ESPN. I remember seeing Mark Cuban and Sage Steele there in the crowd. But who was the person who contacted you to say, "Hey, Smarty, can you get to Assembly Hall? Can you get to Bloomington, for this reunion for Coach"? How did that process start for you?
Yeah, well, it started with Randy Whitman. Randy Whitman
Randy.
has spent some time with Coach, and along with Quinn Buckner and Scott May, and they started talking about this thing. Coach had he actually moved back to Bloomington, and that actually moved that far from where my in-laws live, and so he had moved back to Bloomington, and so they was like, okay, you move back, because I call Coach probably once or twice a month. And I called him one time just to check on him, see how he was doing. And he said, "Well, I'm getting ready to move." I said, "We moving? Where are you moving to?" And he said, "I'm moving back to Bloomington. My wife says she's moving." And I said, "Well, I better go with her." And so Randy went down to Bloomington to spend some time with him. And they started talking about him coming back. He said, "Man, the fans, they want to see you again, Coach. They need to see you. You're here. You might as well do it, So that conversation started. He had contacted me earlier about getting back, to Bloomington because Coach is going to come to a game. And then, but it wasn't sure, because Coach had changed his mind and say, got everybody coming and no one shows up. And so he said, I think he's going to come for this game, but I'm not 100% that he's going to do it. And so are you available at this time? And at that time, we had just got to let him go in New York. And so I had time, but I wasn't. It didn't work out. So Coach decided not to go to that game anyway, so it didn't work out. Then he came back again. Randy said, "I think we got him. I think we got him convinced to come back." So he started calling and talking to all the former players, because what they were going to do was going to celebrate. I think it was one of the Big Ten championship teams. It was just going to him being in town, coming to that game to celebrate that team. And then they switched gears and said, "Let's go through every era that played for him. Let's get those guys back."
That's magical.
And that's how it started. And it started to snowball, and everyone started communicating, and the university started communicating to all the players who were going to be able to be back there for that particular time. And then we all got back there. And like I said, you looked at all these guys, and you looked at so many players, and seeing all these people and their wives and their kids, teammates and their wives and kids, and all these things that we had and talked about, and all the stories, like I said, all the stories started to show up. But Randy was the guy that initiated that with along
That's
with
beautiful.
And those guys.
And see, I think about that because Ted Kitchell was roommates with Randy Whitman when he was at IU and had great years and great success. And I think of, the names that you're mentioning, you talk about Quinn Buckner and Kent Benson. I mean, there's your 70s. And then, like you said, the 80s, your guys, and then the 90s. And you just think of the number of lives that Coach has positively impacted with those life lessons and practices. And it's just a beautiful thing, because I remember I was talking with you and you sent me a text, and it was you and Coach Knight sitting there at the chair.
Right.
What was those conversations like to, go back and talk with Coach, and what were things that you guys discussed, during those times when it was just Keith and Coach?
Right. Well, the picture that I showed you there was the conversation I had started with him, was when I took the story about my mom.
Okay.
I said, "Coach, you may not remember this, but there's a time when you benched me, and I wasn't playing, but you were talking to my mom." And he just said, "You know what? Your mother and I have a great relationship, and so it was those type of things. When I got ready to get into coaching, Coach Knight always wanted me to come back and coach at Indiana. He wanted me to come be an assistant coach with him. And I said, "Coach, I don't know, because you put your assistants through some stuff. I can't deal with that one, brother." I said, "No." But when I finished my playing career, and I came back my last year of playing, I had a contract to go back to Europe, but we were getting ready to have our first child. and we didn't want to have a baby overseas. And Carol, we actually, good thing we didn't, because the baby came early. You know, Andre came very, very early. We would have been over there, no family over there in Europe, and wasn't going to be worth it. So I decided to stay home. I said, I'm going to try out for the NBA team. If I get cut, I'm going to go to the CBA and play until we had a baby. And then I have a contract to go back the following year to play, finish up playing over there. And that year, I went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, to play with the Fort Wayne
Fury. Yeah.
Fort Wayne. And the coach got sick. Coach named Gerald Oliver got sick, and I became a player coach. And then from being a player coach, we finished the season that summer, because in all season I was having basketball camps and I was doing speaking engagements. And so one day I had a speaking engagement. I cut up some chicken that morning, and I went out to do my speaking engagement. Was gone for several hours, came back home, and was going to cook that chicken later that night. And so Carol said, there's something that trash can smells. Can you go get rid of that trash, take that trash out? So I take the trash out. And the place that I lived at was called The Point. And it was a little outside of Bloomington, like 15, 20 minutes outside of Bloomington. And it was a retirement area, but since I was still playing, I wanted a place that I could, it'd be safe and everything while we were away, when I was playing overseas or what have you. And so it was a house out on the lake. And so we had that. I take the trash out. There was another guy who was a younger guy. It probably was three of us that was probably the younger guys. Everybody else was retirees out there. And so we're talking. It was very windy and dry. And he was on light bulb duty that, we would rotate around. He was on light bulbs. So he was going around the different venues, putting in new light bulbs. And so he said, man, this wind is crazy. I said, yeah. And as I'm walking back to my place from the dumpster, all of a sudden, because they had a communal dumpster area. And so as I saw the first house, the flame shoots through the ceiling and come up and through the roof. Oh. And this guy, that house had a crack flue in the chimney, and the fire somehow got into those walls.
Wow.
And so I'm walking back to my place, which is about 8 homes from my house. At that time, a lot of the wiring, electrical wiring, ran across the top of the houses. And so I get back to our place, and I told Carol, I said, Carol, there's a fire, several houses from us down the street, And so the back part of our house were up against a lake. Okay. And so as I get to her, tell her that there's a fire. We had a son. Normally we would put him down and take him upstairs to go to sleep upstairs. Well, by the time I got back to my place, we could smell smoke, and There was smoke already upstairs in the house. And if we'd done that, we'd have put him up to bed, and we would have came back down watching TV, And so, because the fire hit those wires and just ran through the houses. Well, 28 out of 32 homes got destroyed out there that night. And so I said, okay, all right. When I was getting ready to go back to Europe, I bought a lot of shoes. When you find a shoe, you take them with you back to Europe. And so I was going to take those shoes with me. They all got destroyed. And I said, you know what? Maybe this is a sign from the Lord telling me that my basketball days of playing are over. And that's when I started to get into, Coach Knight wanted me to come back. He said, look, I want you to come back here. Coach, a lot of your peers are now in their second tier of coaching. If you want to be a coach, build a program and build a winning program, you've been out for 9 years, you have an opportunity to come here with me, sit with me for 5 years, and perhaps you go get you a program, and then you go to another program. So at that time I was 35. He said, so now you're 40 by being with me for 5 years. And then you go to another place and you're there for another. So now you're 45. Now you're finally in a program where you can build to become a winner. And now you're even. And so at that time, the organization wanted me to become the head coach in Fort Wayne, because that coach had gotten sick. They said, well, would you want to be a player coach next year? I said, no, I can't do that. I can't play and coach. That's just not working. They said, no, we want you to come back and be the head coach for next year. And so I went back to coach, told him, I said, hey, coach, I got this opportunity. They want me to coach in Fort Wayne. And he said, you know what? That may not be a bad idea. You should do that. Go coach in Fort Wayne. And if you don't like it, don't work out, come back with me. And I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And I went up there and started coaching. and started to enjoy it and started to have success and started to win and started to get players developed and moved on to the NBA or over in Europe for a bigger contract. And it just took off from there. But then he went back to what he said to me about, you make sure you organize, you make sure you're prepared, because you're going to have tough times. And when those tough times happen, if you're not organized, it's going to be a struggle.
Wow.
And literally players leave to get called up to the NBA, your dynamics of the team change. And so that was the portion of how the coaching part of him coaching me moved me into the coaching profession.
Love it, man. Coach, I love hearing these stories because, we've all had life vests thrown to us at some time that kept us afloat and kept us going. And then we fall back on those life lessons and habits that we picked up through, our experiences through sports. And, again, hearing that story, it's almost like Coach Knight had a blueprint for you so he could help you be successful. And I love hearing that story. And thanks for sharing that. But, I think about, last February, it looked like the electricity in Assembly Hall was just amazing. What was it like coming through that tunnel with Coach being recognized, the crowd erupting? What was that feeling? What did it look like? What did it feel like?
Well, like I said, when we were sitting in the holding room, where all the former players were and their families and wives and everyone having discussions back there. So you can feel the emotions of it all. Because each player, like you saw me sitting with Coach on that photo.
Yeah.
I my time with him, and then another player would come in, have his time with him and so forth. Some of the wives who were girlfriends at that time, that kind of didn't know Coach at that time, but over the years got to know him,
Wow.
Visit here or there, or a phone call here or there, got to know, because even when I was playing, he would say to Carol, like, when is he going to stop chasing that ball around the world and start getting, but getting ready for the event, because at first the players, when they had thought about it at first, to have the players for one particular Big Ten championship team, they were going to be able to sit in the arena and watch the game.
Yeah.
But because they shift gears and became this huge group of players, there's no way we don't have any room for that. So we're going to keep you guys in this area back here for all the players and families. And so the momentum was starting to build up. And then when finally they came in and said, let's start lining up by this class or this team here this year. And we all started lining up and everyone starts getting there. And then Coach got up and started walking around with Quinn, I think it was, and they started getting themselves ready.
Wow.
And you hear the fight song. And we all had the red jackets on with our number on it and everything. So we all uniform with each other. And so we're getting ready to move to the staging area to start getting ready to hit the floor as halftime is getting ready to come down. And you start to hear the roar. And then when the first group of fans start to see the assembly of Coach Knight, of the players and the group that's going to come out, Coach is still off to another area. And then finally they start introducing the team, the different teams, and they start going on the floor, introducing them one by one. All the emotions of your playing days came back. You sea of red and white. You saw it on the floor where you were at one point. You saw Dick Vitale because national level team. You always had a top level broadcasting team that was there at the games. So you start to see all those things. So the energy was just off the chart. Everyone kind of felt like their young 18 to 22-year-old self again. And we got in that building. And once we all finally got on the floor and the crowd is going crazy in there, then all of a sudden you start to see Quinn. And then I think it might have been Randy. Then you start to see Quinn and Scott May. And next thing you know, here comes Coach walking through. And I tell you, that moment was, for that moment, he went back to being Coach Knight.
Yes, he did.
Because you saw the energy he had that he had a long time. And you saw the emotional roller coaster that he was on as he made his way to that floor and made his way over to Dick Vitale. And then
you saw that feistiness in him again. He got kind of feisty.
And then on the saw where I was standing next to him, Isaiah, a couple other guys, and he started screaming defense.
I saw you did that day.
He looked over at me and he kind of said, "Get out, play defense." I got into this defensive position and started shuffling my feet and everything. And you went for that moment. I mean, I almost like felt like, because you go through a defensive chatter with your feet and you hit the floor.
Yeah.
You know, I told you, my problem was going to be getting back up off the floor. So I was going to hit the floor.
Oh, Coach, I'll tell you what.
That would be most moment of that time, seeing him in that environment.
And you could see it, and the love that the fans and the community gave to Coach Knight, and Coach Knight, it put that fire back in him, and just to see him kind of well up with a little bit of tear. There, right. I mean, there's 2 decades of emotion right there that he had to set aside, because to me, that community and that assembly hall needed that, and right. for them to have that reunion. It needs to be a 60 for 60 documentary, because it was magical. It was moving. It was just so powerful, Smarty. And for you to be right there and, share that with us, I just think it's something that, I hope they can make a documentary about it.
No, you're absolutely right, because each player had his own personal experience playing for Coach Knight.
There you go.
It says some of it was great for a lot of players. Some of it was in the middle. Some of it wasn't the way they thought it would be, and it didn't work out.
But that's life. That's life. Come on.
And then, unfortunately, how it may have happened to some players, But each guy, it was each individual experience. So when people say, "Well, that Coach Knight is this and that," I can only talk to you about my experience with him and what happened to me. Because all the stories that I may have, the conversation that I've had with him, the situation in my life, going through everything that I went through through my life, through miscarriages, of being home, lost a home, with everything, with so many Indiana fans, knowing that I had just gone to my mother's house in Louisiana, picked up all the accolades of things that I had accomplished over the years of my playing, from playing and coaching, but we're from playing. And to lose all that, because now you got kids kind of have a little treasure chest, so that when you look back, your kids to be able to say, "Oh, Dad had this, he did that." I lost all that. Didn't have any of that stuff.
Gone.
But through all the years of people collecting things, they were sending this stuff back to me.
Wow.
And so I was same exact things that I had lost. I was getting some of those things back.
Beautiful.
So it was just one of those incredible moments in time to see that happen, based on when Coach said he'll never return to Bloomington.
That's right. Yeah.
For it to happen, but it took a strong coach, a guy who was a coach in Randy Whitman, to coach him to coming back, because he had some quality. Said, "Coach, I think you need to get back there." I'm never going to go back. I'm sure that was the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, Coach, listen, you need to be there. We want you there. And I think what he kept saying, probably, I don't know, I wasn't privy to the conversation he had with Coach, but I can imagine that maybe he was saying, "Coach, we want you there. Your players need to see you there. They're all going to be there." And I think that may have kind of loosened up that string to say, "You know what, let me go back there for them."
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, Coach. And again, to be able to sit here in Salt Lake City, Utah, watching that ESPN game, because there was starting to be a buzz that, hey, Coach Knight might be around. Of course, I knew that you were going to be there, but of course, I can't share that information. Right. I mean, that's stuff that you don't talk about. It's inside, it's internal, and it's family, and that's the way it should be. But, watching that moment and seeing that little tear kind of him well up, and the love that the fans gave him, and then just, all you players from all those decades being there, it was just a beautiful thing. And thank you for sharing that with us, because I know that, it had to be so heartfelt and so much emotion behind it.
Yeah, no, again, and see, even when, because we were all in that room waiting, no one was sure that Coach was coming then.
Right. Yeah.
Because he could have still decided, "You know what, I'm gonna watch the game on TV."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's still because everyone was saying, "Is Coach here? Is he here?" Because we hadn't seen him yet, And then finally he walked into that room, and so. Wow. But again, what he talked about is 5 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 35 years from now, I want this Indiana group of basketball players, I want them to have that feeling of what we talked about, that they can now come back together as a group of players. And that's why I say sometimes when we start talking about when I'll send a text out and start these guys, like if I send one today to a guy, I guarantee you I'm going to have this text running for a couple of days.
That's beautiful.
We'll talk about all kind of crazy things. One of the things that we always enjoyed at Indiana was when we would go on a road trip, and we would go through the process of, you get there, you go to practice. The next day you got study hall, you're doing your homework and stuff like that. And then you go through film sessions, and then you go to get ready to go to bed at night. But at I think it was like 9:30 that night before the game, you couldn't wait for this tray that would come around, this little cart, someone bringing something to you. He would always get us vanilla ice cream and apple pie.
Wow. Okay.
On the road trip, it was, the little cart would come up there and the guy would bring it up there, and we go to the hallway and get our ice cream and apple pie, little things like that. You remember those things, and you would go back to your room with your roommate, or some of you guys were all hanging out in a room somewhere, and just so many other stories that we would have. We always rotated roommates. We didn't have the same roommate, because that was part of the whole bonding that you were having with someone. So we didn't have the same roommate. There was a game we had played Iowa, and we lost that game there. And myself and Rick Callaway were roommates.
Ricky Callaway.
I think we was going to play Wisconsin next, and we were still on the road. Then we played like a Thursday game or a Wednesday game, and they had a Saturday game. And Callaway and I roommates, and we never roommates. So we played this game in Iowa. Coach gets upset with us from this game. He calls us to his room once we land in landed in Wisconsin. We go to his room, and people always send Coach stuff when he would on the road. And so someone had sent him some garlic crabs, So in that room eating these garlic crabs. But he's getting on us because he's watching this film already. And it's probably not 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. He's watching this film. And he's calling us every time to come back to this room to watch this film. We didn't have any rest, nothing, man. We go to practice the next day, shoot around, and Rick and he said, I want Rick Callaway and Smart tape. And we never taped for shoot around, I want those two taped. And Rick and I are playing over here, one-on-one, just nothing while the team is going through walkthrough, we're doing one-on-one training. And I'm thinking, like, there's no way we're gonna play in the game tonight. They are putting us through it. We get back, get our meal, get ready for the game, come back. So I'm not thinking we're gonna play at all, based on what we had gone through from the night before to that practice the next morning. And we get introduced as starters for the game, and we play, and we have great games. We have really good games, right? We finish the game. Coach comes up and says, you see why rest is overrated? Because you did this on limited rest, but mentally you were able to get through it,
Wow.
Which is incredible, a moment that we had, because we thought, based on the training and the workout that we had, we always say, save your legs,
Yeah.
But we were so hard that we felt we had no legs, but yet we played a hell of a game.
Wow. I love it. All that stuff that you're sharing is beautiful. But, Smarty, you're also a cancer survivor. You were with the Miami Heat franchise at the time. And
Right.
I can remember, conversations with you and text messages back and forth when you're going through that. Kind of share with us, what that was like when, talk about the cancer, talk about the diagnosis, talk about what you had to go through, to go through that process with all the, medications and treatments and ringing that bell. Share that with our viewers as well.
Yeah, Scott, three of the most frightening words that anyone can hear and be said or to them is, you have cancer, And I always had a little bump on the side of my left side of my face. And, my family had keloid, and so I just thought it was something like that. My wife, hey, your wife and your viewers and listeners' wives, that are out there, girlfriends, significant others, when they tell you to go get something checked, when they tell you this doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, trust them on that, because God has given them a sixth sense that
Amen.
they given them something, right? And so my wife would always be on me about, you need to get this check. And then finally I said, all right, I'll do it. And so being in Miami, again, a championship organization, how they function, how they operate, just blew my mind when I got there to work there for Spoelstra and work for Pat Riley, and how they taught and did things. And so I go to a dermatologist right before Summer League. I go to a dermatologist. He looks at it. He said, oh, yeah, this is a keloid. In our culture, Asian, Indians, African Americans, keloid is very, very prevalent in that community. And he gave me some medication, and I did it and everything, and then called me and said, how's it going? How's it looking? I said, hey, doctor, it looks the same to me. Doesn't look any different. He said, well, when you get back here after Summer League, come see me again and we'll take another look at it. So I get back, go look at it. He takes a look at it, go, you know what? It just looks different. I'm going to get you over to someone else. And being in Miami, because people retire there, so they have some of the best medical situations that I can possibly be in. And having a team doctors in Miami with the heat really helped them with this. So I got sent to another doctor. He looked at it. He said, we're going to biopsy it and take a look at it, and I'll get back to you and let you know what we find. So he did that, went through it, the process. He said, well, it came back benign. There's nothing there. But I did leave. We're going to try to remove that bump from your side of your face. So he did that. But he said, I left 2% in because I just couldn't go any closer, because it was right near some nerves. And if I hit one of those nerves, it could paralyze you, your left side of your face. So he backed out of it. He said, I don't know what it is for sure, but it's something that I think it's this, but I'm not sure. End up going to another specialist there in Miami, and he looked at it and finally comes back to me and called me over to come see him. And now here's the crazy part. We have a game that night. After shoot around, I go to his office and not even thinking about it. So I go get in my car and shoot around, drive over there. It should be a quick 15, 20 minutes, right? That morning, I put my suit and my shoes for the game in my car. And normally I would, as we would go to shoot around, go back home, bring our stuff back to the arena that night. But I put everything in the car today, preparation, right? So I put everything in the car, so I had it already. And so I go to see him. We sit down and start talking. He said, we're not 100% sure. This is something that's very, very rare. And it's a type of skin cancer. It's called dermafibrosis sarcoma protuberant. Long name, right?
Ooh.
And he said it's very rare. It affects 1 in 1 million people. 1 in 1 million people, and you just happen to be this one in this million here. And so we're going to take a look at it and go through it. And so I'm thinking, okay, you say I had cancer. He said, yeah, it doesn't move around. It stays in one place where it is. But the issue that it has these tentacles that will go out and move. Now, mine being right here on the side of my face, right below my ear, well, there's not a lot of real estate. It's going across my face, up my face, or behind. And of course, going up is going to my brain. He said, if we don't get it under control, we got between 3-5 years, and it'll be in your brain. And at that point, there's nothing you can do because it sends these tentacles out. But we do everything we can to get this. So I'm in this place while I'm waiting to hear this news that I just received. I'm sitting there, kind of not paying much attention because I'm still on my computer working, waiting for my appointment time. When I'm working everything, and then I just looked up and I realized I'm in a cancer treatment center.
Wow. And
I'm watching different people come through here. I mean, in that time frame while I was waiting, just hundreds of people coming through. And that's just that place. So imagine this in other parts of the city, of the state, and of the country, and of the world, but I'm sitting there looking at all of this. Still has not hit me yet. Go to his office. He sit there. He said, now, do you understand what's happening here? He said, you have a rare case of cancer and we got it under control. So He said, I'm going to call you back again. I'm going to present you to a couple conferences because we have not seen something like this in such a long time. I'm going to present you at a conference and we're going to look at how do we attack? How do we go about attacking this? So I went back to the arena because now I missed my nap time is gone. I drive back over to the arena and get ready for the game, work out my players on the floor that I need to work out, and still not hitting me, still not hitting what has been said to me that you have cancer. And now I'm in this situation. We finished the game. I'm on my way back home that night. I haven't called Carol to tell her anything yet. And I'm going through it for a couple of days. Haven't told anyone yet. A couple of days. Still haven't told anyone. And then I said, I got to tell a few people. So I called Spoelstra and David Fisdale, Eric Spoelstra and David Fisdale. And I met with them after practice. And I said, man, I got to tell you guys something. Because the doctor now has called me back and said, we got an idea what we're going to be dealing with. And here are the dates we're going to have surgery and get you on this treatment. And that's when it hit me, and I sat in front of them, and as they're waiting for me to tell them what was going on, I broke down. And when you talk about friends, two guys that I'm very close with, they didn't know what it was that I was going through this emotion with. Yeah. Both of them started crying.
Wow.
Both of them. And I hadn't even shared what it was, but they knew it was something painful. Yeah. And so it was thinking that, man, maybe it's Carol or maybe it's the kids or what is it? His mom or something like that, his dad, whatever it might be. And then finally, I shared with them what had happened and what was going on. And those two guys just lost it, Wow. And I'm these two great men sitting there feeling my pain. And obviously told Carol, now Carol knows, and I finally told the team because I'm going to have to be leaving the team. And I just shared with them. I said, look, my kids don't know yet. So, please don't tweet anything or talk about it on social media yet. My one son is getting ready, in his finals and everything. So I hope you just don't say anything yet because I don't want them worrying about anything. And then finally, we get through that portion there, man. I go get ready for the surgery and in Miami, and I go through a 15-hour surgery, and they had to use what was called a Mohs surgery. And what that type of surgery is that they go layer by layer of skin to make sure that the cancer is not in any of those layers of skin. And I had to go really down about an inch and a half into my face to get all those cancerous cells that they can get out, surgical standpoint, out of there. And then, of course, we talk about our wives, man. So Carol comes down to Miami, and now they're going to say, where you're going to have your treatment, where you're going to take place. And I was thinking, okay, you know what? I'm going to do my treatments here. I can still go to work and work and things like that. And the doctor said, Keith, you're going to go home because it's going to be a tough road trying to come back. It's going to be a tough road. And while I'm in the hospital, I never forget this funny thing happened. Spoelstra and his administrative assistant was coming by to see me. So I'm in the room. Now, they hadn't seen me since the surgery and things like that.
Yeah.
So, of course, with the surgery and having 15 hours and had to remove a portion of my face and then take skin from my thigh to put on my face, as a graft. And so they come into, I got these tubes stuck in my neck, draining everything from the surgeries. And so Eric Spoelstra comes around the corner. Carol is sitting in the room. Spoelstra comes around the corner, and he doesn't know what he's going to see when he comes into this room.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen myself because I've been in a bed, so I haven't been to a mirror yet. So no idea what I look like. And then all of a sudden I look at Spoelstra's face, and it's kind of like, oh my goodness.
Wow. Just the trauma to the area. Yeah.
That area, because this whole side of my face is just like,
right.
Because it's going through that recovery period. And he looks at me kind of like, my goodness, coach, And then we started talking about everything. And I know Spoelstra very well. So I knew that was the environment he needed to be in. So I didn't try to linger with conversation with him. I just, hey, man, thank you so much for coming, man,
Yeah.
And he felt it, man. But he was doing all he can to keep me engaged with the team and stuff like that while he's coaching.
Wow.
Pat Riley was doing the same thing, And eventually we moved on when the doctor said that, you need to be around your family to go through this treatment that you're going to need to go through. I said, I want to do it here. And so I can stay around the team and work. Well, by that time, Carol had already, with the doctors, made an arrangement in San Francisco for my treatment, that I was going to have to go through radiation and everything, and try to combat this thing. And from the surgery, they had one portion. Now you got to go through the radiation and the chemo, and going through it. We get back here, and I'm fine. I healed up a little bit. Still got some swelling in my face, but I don't feel sick. That's the thing. But I never felt sick. I didn't feel sick. So now, a couple of friends are calling just to stay busy, and say, hey man, let's go play some golf. So I was going to play golf and everything, go take my treatment on a Tuesday, every day during the week. And then go play golf and everything, just being home, watching film and still sending my reports, because I still was doing reports and sending them out to Spolstra. And Spo just came back, hey man, why are you doing these things? You don't need to be doing this. And so I was still sending my reports out to him after watching the game breakdown film, because I charted all our offense and defense and gave all the analytical numbers to send back to him. And I did those things. But then it started getting to the point when I got to treatment 15, my energy now is gone the other way. And I can't, by the time we drive from my house, which is in the East Bay, to San Francisco to get the treatment, I was asleep. I was asleep in the car on the way there, get the treatment, and then I'm asleep on the way back, and then I'm home. And got to the point now, I can't even go up to my room now. I had to literally down, in the chair that I became my home, my world, where I stayed in. And so my kids would get up to go to school in the morning before I left to go for treatment. And they would see me there lying in the chair. And then when they come back, I'm lying in the chair, through the night I'm in the chair. And then I said, boys, I'm sorry you guys see me like this, and they both just said, Dad, hey, no problem, long as you're here,
Right. Wow.
So I got through those. And then by the time I went from 15, I ended up doing 48 rounds.
Wow.
Radiation. And what they was doing, they were increasing my radiation by 10% each radiation treatment. So this thing was so aggressive, they had to really, really
wow.
I lost like 47 pounds doing that, and I lost my ability to taste and smell. All that was gone. But old steady Carol was right there by my side, getting me through it and everything. And I never forget this one time I stopped eating. I couldn't eat. Food just didn't taste me. If you can't taste food, you don't like food.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, I'm gonna make this steak shake. So you ever heard of this? So she takes some soup, vegetable soup, and a steak, and she puts it in a blender.
She purees it.
She purees this thing into a steak, man, in a shake. She put it in a glass and she gave it to me. And she said, "You're gonna drink this." I said, "No, I'm not drinking this thing." She said, "You're gonna drink this." I said, "No, Carol, I'm not drinking this thing." And you're gonna drink this if I gotta jump on you and hold you down and pour some in your face and some gets in there, because you're not eating. You got to eat.
Wow.
And she did that, and I drank that shake, but instantly I got energy right away, because I finally got nutrients into my system. And I said, that'd be the last one I drink, So I made sure I started eating something after that, Then we had a friend who actually was working for the Raiders. Then she was a chef, and so she decided, heard about the news and everything, decided that I'm going to cook your food for you, and because what I was able to taste and eat was fish and rice. And so she started just preparing all these different types of fish and rice for me. And I was able to eat that stuff and was able to get through it. And then my mom just said, eat some grits and things like that. So long story, went through that battle of cancer, got through it, finished it up, and was able to ring the bell. Now, while I'm in there of going through my treatment, everyone who's in treatment, you're there, you see each other every week for a long period of time, depending on how long you're there, you're coming in. So we would come in the morning, got to meet people, friends, some of their families, and we would say, "How are you feeling today?" And everyone would lie and say,
I'm good. I'm
feeling good. And we said, let's stop lying to each other. When you're going through radiation or chemotherapy, you don't feel good. The day is not a happy day for you. You end up. And I said, let's just tell people the truth. When they say, "How are we?" And I said, let's tell them the truth. Tell them we feel terrible. But what my boy said to me, "But you're here." And a lot of people weren't there, And so as I finished up my treatment and going through treatment, you start to see different people who were able to continue the treatment program. And you saw people who treatment was being discontinued because to a point where they couldn't do any more for them.
Yeah, it's now terminal. Yeah.
Yeah. The day that I rang my bell, it's two worlds that's taking place in this building. You know, you go downstairs into the basement to do your treatment and you get a chance to ring the bell. And then there's another group that's not going to ring that bell.
Yeah.
And the gentleman that was there, I don't know what happened to him later, but this gentleman, he's in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair. And he said, Coach, how you doing? I said, man, I just rang the bell, man. Just rang the bell. I said, man, you're going to be able to ring your bell. And he said, Coach, I'm not going to be able to ring my bell. My treatment program is getting ready to stop because there's no I can't go any farther. And man, I was like, here I am excited to have made it through. And here's this person on the same platform, but not, you know. So you have respect for what you go through and see these people going through the treatment and the cancer survivors that are out there and what they face when they're going through it. Because it's not just you going through it.
Yeah.
Your family going through the whole emotional thing, your friends going through it, and they all would love to trade places with you. But I tell them all the time, you don't want to trade places with this because
not on this one.
This is so a journey that you know go on and sometimes you don't make it. And there was two other people that were in that group that kind of had somewhat of the same type of cancer that I had. One member, the cancer had gotten beyond where mine was. It had gotten across their face. So literally they had to remove their eye, remove portion of their face, and had that graft that covered their face. Another gentleman had kind of the same thing, and his went across the lower part of his chin and his mouth. So the portion. So here I was in the middle of those two extremes with almost the same type of cancer in the same particular area. Mine just maybe let's say it's 3 years later where that is now, you know, and before I would have been kind of egotistical and say, I'm going to fight through this. Because I even thought about that. I said, you know what? I trust in God. I believe he's going to get me through this. You know, I'm not going to take the treatment. I'm not going to go through. I'm going to have my faith push me through this.
Yeah.
And I just remember the old story. Hey, I sent the boat to you during the flood and you wouldn't get in.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh.
So here are the great doctors that came my way that I was able to do that. And they were able to help me. And none of those doctors got into the ego part of it because the dermatologist could have said, let me just give you more medication, treatment. The first doctor that had the first portion of the surgery they removed the bump. What if he would have kept going and would have hit that nerve? You know, all things there. We talk about moments in that championship game. What if Derek Coleman make one of the free throws? What if the guy deflects the ball from behind me and I don't get a chance for that pull up? What if this would have happened over here in the slow motion world? You know, and so you just have to trust people that you're working with, trust the people in front of you, and then get your ego out of the way.
There you go.
And that was it.
Wow, that's powerful. Man. That's powerful, Smarty. I love that. You know what? You and I, we're both very spiritual. We're both faith-based people. And I think that's one of the things that kind of attracted myself to you and your personality and just your ways. But I believe this, Smarty, and I'm not just saying this because you're here with me. God's not done with you yet, my man. And, you know, the game and society is better because of people like Keith Smart. And my prayers are that you're going to land back on a bench soon to where you're going to continue to impact lives just like Coach Bobby Knight did for you. And you're going to empower these people to make productive members in society. And I see that going to happen for you soon. And the game needs you, brother. Society needs you. And I just have nothing but high praise for you. And I thank you for your friendship. And I'm going to tell you, I love you, man. I don't think there's anybody better. And I wish more people were more comfortable to share their feelings and emotions like that. But I'm just going to tell you, I love you. And I thank you so much for your friendship. And we got to get you back on the sideline soon because the game needs you, my man.
No, you know, everything that, you know, from us growing around and, you know, being in position, short-term coaching here, this team, that team. And I never got the opportunity to really get a full-time position of coaching somewhere. to hire you. I always told you, man, you're perfect because you went through the coaching all over the world type thing, the grind of being all over the world. And see, that's what coaching needs. Coaching, because these players, as you can see with B playing overseas, with your son playing, players, as they come out of college, they want to go one place for sure. They want to go to the NBA, or they want to just play a professional career somewhere, So you need people to be able to communicate those things to them who have already gone there. Because when I was over in Europe playing, I had different American players on my team, and they get so frustrated with life.
Yeah.
You're practicing every day. You practice hard and long, 2 times a week, sometimes with the teams that I played on. And I said, you got to explore this great area that you're in, because you're just going to get frustrated, So able to communicate that to young players and young people about life and things that they're going to need to do. We share these moments now, because I started to look now. Don't look at next year with a player. Don't look at 5 years with a player. My teaching now, what I've learned over this last year, was that I've been doing it wrong. I've been coaching and teaching players to be ready for tomorrow. When we got to be saying, you got to be ready 30 years tomorrow.
Amen.
So
Amen.
we say, hey, we always say, use an analogy, you cannot control the future. You have to focus on today. That's very true. But you might make it to the future.
That's right.
And if you don't have the skills and tools that's going to be necessary to make it to the future, you have lost a lot of valuable time. So I changed the way of my thinking. And I use this little analogy now. I put 3 rings down, right? 3 rings on the table. And those first rings, I want you to take 4 things, maybe 5, but let's say 4. You're going to put in that first ring 4 things: your faith, your family, your friends, and your finances in that first ring. And that was 5 years ago. You take that second ring and you put those same 4 things in there. Did you get closer to those 4 things from 5 years ago to now? That third set of rings, the same 4 things. And that's what you're working on to build to those next 5 years.
Wow.
And the rings now just flip over. They just keep flipping over. So you're always projecting out 5 years from where you are, but based on where you were 5 years ago, where you are now, and then where you're going to be moving toward with those 4 things. Those are 4 things for me. It could be something else for you.
Love it.
Put those things in there. And so that's what you're trying to teach. And that becomes coaching, as it becomes family, it becomes kids. Even being off this amount of time, this is 7 years where I've had this amount of time being back home full time.
Yeah, right.
I had to learn how to live in the house again with my family.
Yeah, sure. It's a transition. It is. And you go from 0 to 100 back to 0. Well, then again, you have to use those life skills that taught you to have that passion, have that purpose, have that focus, and yet still have meaningful, productive relationships, and yet still be a guide and a mentor, a father, a husband, and try to be the best of those. Hey, it takes some life skills, brother.
Yeah, it takes, and we got the oldest son that's here with us, and he's working every day. You have to learn how to talk to him again before you text or you talk 5 minutes. You sit in the room sometimes, and when I first got back here, like, what do we talk about?
Wow.
And then we start things that we can communicate with about certain things. So I can start talking to him about, as he's working every day and what he's trying to prepare for his future life and stuff like that. And hey, I say, hey man, look, whatever you want to do with your life, find a job that you love, because you're going to have passion for it, and whatever, don't worry about what it's paying you. Then you have to look at other things outside of you. Find this job that you love. Now you got to look at other things. I want to keep doing this, but I need to figure out a way how I can continue to earn to help me over here so I can help with my passion. Because, when you got your passion, you can be there all day long. You can sit in the room here with
it's not work. Yeah, it's not a job.
15 hours a day and not even worry about it, And so that's what you're trying to get across. And those are things that I've been sharing. And like I said, I had to redirect thinking about just preparing for tomorrow, or just focusing on today.
Yeah.
And so let's just jump this thing and say, okay, where you need to be in when you're 55. Like how many kids have thought about their lives when
Right.
they're 55 now, 60? Because that's a whole nother ball game when you hit 55 and 60.
Yep.
You got to now figure out how to play in that arena, and that's a different arena.
There you go. That's so true, Smarty. So true. Wow.
Yeah.
It's this has been so enriching, and I'm a better version of myself just because, again, I get to spend this kind of quality time with someone that I admire and respect. So thank you for empowering me with these tools and these stories and these experiences. And I know if people have taken the time to listen, whether in a podcast or watching us on TV, I think this has been wonderful nuggets shared, Smarty. And I can't thank you enough for your time and your friendship and your love. And thank you for, sharing it with us. And because I'm sure, there's 1,000 other things you could be doing, and your wife probably needs you to do some stuff on the house, and the boys are there. But man, like I'm saying, I love you, and I can't thank you enough. Do you have any closing words for our viewers here?
I'll just say, number one, the fact that the platform you have, you've allowed so many people to come on there that has helped other people. If you don't make a decision from several years ago, say, I want to do this coach's show. Something you've probably been thinking about, but all of a sudden you just say, you know what, I'm going to jump into it. So kudos to you, to Kim, for you growing what you have done thus far. And I always focus on, how am I affecting the people I come in contact with? That's it.
Yeah.
No matter what their backgrounds are, their beliefs, their political beliefs, their faith.
Amen.
You just impact them through your life. And that's what you've always been, an impactful person around me, been an impactful person around all the players I'm in contact with, been impactful with the people you're reaching now. And so as your listeners and your viewers are watching your shows, you just know that you're pouring something into their lives, they can into their lives that you can apply to your life, So it's not just a coach's show, this is, I say you can go from, I was coaching 12 to 15 players to all of a sudden now you're coaching 12 to 1,500 or 15,000, 15 million people. So you coaching, once you become a coach or a teacher, you move from just coaching just that one person, you're coaching multiple people, because now maybe what you taught to one person, they teach another person, they teach another person, and that's the benefit of being able to share. These are things that some of us have always wanted to share, but never had a platform to share. And now you, as well as other people that I've done some of these things with, has given people a platform to talk about that. So where you can just talk about stories and talk about life that can help other people. Having gone through cancer, I can share the stories.
Amen.
Having gone through coaching the NBA, playing in college, playing for major coaches, things like that. My other mentor coach was Coach Don Nelson, who taught so much about life as well, and being able to play for a Hall of Fame coach and then work for a Hall of Fame coach and how they operate, has been great. But I tell you, your work that you do, man, because it's all positive, you're uplifting people, you're growing your company, and you're growing your family along the way. And that's like you said to me, big things are just around the corner for you. Who knows, man? You may have one of these big shows on TV one day.
Hey, if that's how the good Lord needs to use me, I feel blessed.
But you're getting the proper training, because so many times we want to train at the next high step, but we got to go through these little small places first to get to that next spot. Because once you get there, I've already done the work over here.
Amen.
So
Amen, you. Smarty. Come on, brother. I love you. Thank you so much. And man, let's go swing some golf clubs. I'm not a motorcycle rider, but I'll get out there on the road with you, just because I know we're only as good as the people we surround ourselves with. And if I can continue to surround myself with Keith Smart and his knowledge and his experience, I'm blessed. I'm blessed and lucky.
Likewise, my man.
Well, let's break bread together soon. Give Carol a hug for me. Tell Andre and Jared I said hello. And I'm really enjoying watching those kids' growth. And Hey, you know what? That Hawaii football team is pretty good because that number 23 out there is doing work.
He's doing a little work out there, man. He's enjoying it, and we enjoy watching him.
Oh,
And his brother and I, brother, myself, my wife, we're all excited watching him and being a part of it. And we just watch it. That's what we do. We just watch and support. That's it.
there you go.
Like
There you
do,
go.
we do the same thing.
Amen, brother. God bless you. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the Coach Scott Fields with another edition of the Coach Scott Fields Show. And I pray and I implore people to please share this content and take these tools for your toolbox to impact your life and make you a better version of you, no matter what walk of life you're in. Stay blessed, stay healthy. Health is wealth, and share and spread love. We need to be united. One love. God bless and have a good day. We'll see you soon on another edition of the Coach Scott Fields Show. Smarty, thank you, brother. I love you.
Thank you.